We'll call the March 18th Pennington County Commission meeting to order. Make note of the fact that Commissioner Holloway is absent today. And we'll stand for a moment of silent reflection and the pledge led by Commissioner Buskerud.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next order of business is to review and approve the agenda. Does anyone have any changes they wish to make to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is the consent agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda contains the following items: approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of March 4th, 2014, approval of the vouchers in the amount of $1,858,589.84. Number 7 is to reappoint Mr. Denny Mann to the Pennington County Weed and Pest Board representing Rapid City for a 3-year term. Number 8 is to reappoint Ms. J.P. Donovan to the Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment Commission for a 5-year term. Approval of the request to change the alternate liaison assigned for the Spring Creek Advisory Committee representing Pennington Conservation District to Mr. Bud Ireland. Number 10 is authorization to purchase 3 Chevrolet Tahoes as part of the 2014 patrol vehicle order as submitted by the Sheriff's Office. Number 11 is to declare surplus the Gold Elite Radio System, asset tags number 2782 and number 5433 as submitted by the Emergency Services Communications Center. Number 12 is approval of the resolution authorizing a fire protection agreement and designation of personnel to request range fire suppression assistant from the South Dakota State Division of Wildland Fire Suppression as submitted by the fire administrator. And finally, number 13 is to recognize the volunteers for the month of February 2014 as submitted by the Human Resource Department.
Thank you. I would acknowledge that J.P. Donovan is here in case someone pulls her appointment off the consent calendar.
Commissioner Buskerud and I were talking about that. I don't know. I'm not sure yet.
Doug, do you have any comment on that particular one?
At any rate, does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair, I suppose the decorum should be that we would approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, JP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Next item is item 14, proposed Powder River Training Complex expansion presentation, and I'll turn the chair over to Commissioner Davis.
Good morning, folks. We have a gentleman here, Colonel Farmer from Ellsworth Air Force Base, and Lieutenant Allison, also in the back of the room from the Ellsworth Air Force Base. They're going to give us a briefing today on the proposed bombing range up in Montana. And there will be no questions from the audience or from the press today of these individuals. They're just here to give us a briefing, and any commissioner that wants to have an item answered, they'll be glad to try and take that question from them. The press can do questions with the commission after the meeting if they so desire. Thank you. Thanks, Colonel. Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate Lieutenant Colonel Brian Farmer, 28th Operations Support Commander and a B-1 pilot. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about the proposed airspace action Powder River Training Complex, commonly known as PRTC. A couple items I'd like to talk to you about, give you an airspace overview. Why do we need PRTC? Talk a little bit about the stakeholders and the timeline of the airspace proposal, and I'll leave you with the current status of where the airspace action is at. Before we talk about the proposal, I want to spend a couple minutes here talking about our current airspace. What we currently call Powder River is just off to the northwest. We've had this for several years now. Great airspace. It does a lot of things for us. And if you look to the right, you'll see how military operating areas, or MOAs, are commonly put together. I look at it as an upside-down wedding cake, if you will, where you have the higher you go. Oh, thank you. The higher you go in airspace, the more it expands. So if you look, the lower areas from the surface to 18,000, and then as it goes from 18,000 to 26,000, flight level 26,000, that's above sea level, expands a little bit, and then that area up there from 27 to 450 is typically where the B-52s operate. Most of your airline traffic is above that purple agenda there. Most of them tend to fly above that. But that gives you a look at what our current airspace is. Now, one of the issues we have with our current airspace is once you get more than a couple airplanes in there, it gets pretty crowded. We also can't do supersonic operations. We can't do certain defensive maneuvers with chaff and flare systems that we would be looking to do in our proposal. So when we started looking to expand, we said, well,
This is what got me.
as it turns out, just north of us here, we have a really good area for airspace to have a military operating area. If you look at this, this is a typical from 8 in the morning to 6 p.m. at night. This is those blue lines represent airline traffic, or just airline traffic and airplane traffic in general. So if you can see, 2/3 of the country, it's pretty busy. So putting a airspace carved out for us in a lot of areas in the United States is very tough. If you look up to where North Dakota, where our current Powder River training area is, you can see that it's not completely void of air traffic, but it's definitely minimized. So this is a great place to put an effort like this to minimize the impact we have on civilian aviation. This is what the airspace proposal looks like. It's 4 distinct different areas: Powder River 1, Powder River 2, Powder River 3, and then on the far right, Powder River 4. Day-to-day operations, it's scalable, and what I mean by that is we can fly. We only tie all this airspace together for no more than 10 days a year. So only 10 days a year, or once a quarter, we can tie all this airspace together and use it for what we consider to be large force exercises. But day-to-day ops, we're only going to be using this from, go to Powder River 1 or Powder River 2 or Powder River 3 or 4 individually. It's not all tied together. To give you an idea, it's approximately 300 miles wide by about 120 miles north to south. And it's very flexible airspace. It provides the types of terrain that we need to train in. On the far left there, over by Billings, that's mountainous terrain. That's very important to us to do low-level mountainous training. And as you move over to the east, the airspace obviously provides a lot for us. And it's a very effective airspace. So why do we need Powder River Training Complex? Put very simply, it gives us the ability to train like we fight in a very realistic manner. OEF and OIF have taught us a lot, and one of the things is we are, the ground commanders, the combatant commanders love the B-1, and the reason why they love us is because we have the ability to maneuver through the battle space quickly and get long distances and get our sensors and get effects to the ground commander. So in order to replicate that, we need distance. Additionally, not just for today's fight, but as we look to prepare for tomorrow's fight, the technology is increasing, and with that is increased distances. So we need to train the way we fight now and the way we anticipate to have to fight in a joint fight in years to come. More importantly, though, it allows that third bullet there to do those large force exercises. A big part of what we do as an Air Force and as a B-1 is we fight with other aircraft. We don't necessarily go in by ourselves. We have a support package. Well, in order to do that, we have to train that way. This gives our joint partners, Navy, Army, Marines, the ability to come to a place and train for that critical mission set that we have. And the big selling point, I would say, is that 85%, with this proposal, we can do 85% of our training. The only thing we will not be able to do, and is not planned, is we wouldn't drop weapons, and we're not planning a drop range on this airspace. So 85% of our crew savings can be done within 15 to 20-minute flight. And that equates to a very big savings. And that number goes up and down depending on what fiscal year your operating cost goes in. But that's an average of what we're looking at saving from not having to fly to other ranges. So I put this in here just to show you kind of in comparison when I talked earlier about how we have to train like we fight. But this, if you took this airspace proposal and overlaid it in Afghanistan, you can see how important it is to have this type of training available to our air crews and to our Air Force. Oftentimes, I've flown quite a bit of sorties over Afghanistan, and oftentimes you're in the far west one minute, and then they're asking you to come to the far east in the next. And you have to be prepared to do that, and you have to be ready to do that. So this just gives you an idea of the scope of what PRTC looks like. Earlier, when I talked about that savings and cost, operating costs, this is where we currently go. So if a lot of the things that we need to do for like supersonic or chaff and flare, we have to travel to 525 nautical miles to get us to the Mountain Home Training Complex. 475 gets us to the Utah Test Range, and then Nellis range just north of Las Vegas. There's about 605 nautical miles. So that's an hour to 2 hours of time just droning to get there, get our training done, and come back. Wear and tear on the airplane when we can do all of that in effect in our backyard. One of the important parts of this airspace proposal are the stakeholders that are working with us to make this happen. This is just a list of who those folks are that we've spent a lot of time working with over the years to make sure that this airspace proposal meets the Air Force needs and mitigates their concerns. The National Park Service has played a big role in this, as well as all four Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota State Historic Preservation Officers. We worked very closely with them, as well as the FAA. The FAA has got obviously a fairly large role in this. And then the Tribal Historic Preservation Officers at TIPOs, we've worked with them and met with them over the last years. ACHP is a government agency that works with not only the TIPOs, but with other government agencies to work through projects like this. Obviously, civilians and landowners, and for those of you who have been here for a while, you know we've done a lot of public scoping and hearings where we've went out and talked to a lot of folks about this airspace proposal. The timeline, you could chase it back to several times, 2005 and really in 2008, but it is the largest DoD airspace expansion. It's the largest one in the Air Force history. So it's been, we've been working this for quite a long time now. We're working through the NEPA Act, which is the National Environmental Policy Act procedures, and at the end of that will be a ROD, which is a record of decision, where the Secretary of the Air Force or his designee, or I should say it's her designee, signs the record of decision. The way to get to the ROD is through what we call a programmatic agreement. It's a contract, if you will, and that's between the FAA, the National Park Service, the states, SHPOs, the TIPOs, ACHP, and the Air Force. And we sign on to this programmatic agreement, and that will basically conclude the Section 106 process. And then after that, the Air Force and the FAA will sign a joint record of decision. And right now, we're anticipating both the Air Force and the FAA doing that in June of 2014, so not too long from now. So what that really means to a pilot like me is, and we're hoping to get this airspace charted by the end of 14, so we could potentially be using this by the end of 14 to early 2015, depending on how we finish up the 106 process. Currently, we're working on that programmatic agreement right now. We're finishing up. We've had some comments on it from our stakeholders, and we're going to push that out hopefully by the end of the month. They'll have 2 to 3 weeks to sign that, and then once that comes back, we'll execute that programmatic agreement, and that will close the 106 process. That's a significant hurdle for this airspace proposal. In parallel to that right now, we're working on the final environmental impact statement, and that will have to be teed up for the June 2014 ROD, and that is on track, and we are actively finishing up that environmental impact statement. One of the things, if you go to the Ellsworth Air Force Base homepage, you'll see on the bottom right of the homepage, you'll see PRTC, and in there, as part of our public scoping and as part of our duty to inform the public, you'll see lots of documentation on that website. You can download any letter we've written, any type of correspondence we've had, and the goal there is kind of to the last bullet. I wanted to make sure is, of all the things that we want to make sure we're doing is we want to be good neighbors. We want to be transparent, and we want to make sure that everyone understands the airspace proposal and they have all the information they need to comment appropriately. And this is a very important airspace action for us, and we look forward to continuing to work with our stakeholders and the FAA to get this thing through. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. Once this is set up and the stakeholders maybe think that there is a problem, is there an advisory group, or how would that be approached?
The programmatic agreement, and it's still in coordination, but it does have the ability for the stakeholders that sign. It depends. If it's someone that signed the actual programmatic agreement, there's very clear stipulations in there that allows them to raise issues to us, one-on-one or to a larger group. But we have reviews built into the programmatic agreement. We have reports that we owe as the bond wing every year. So the programmatic agreement is written to where the stakeholders have a continual stay.
Great.
So.
One thing that when I saw this a while back that I was very impressed with, it's kind of astounding to see that, I think about the second or third slide that had the overfly of all of the commercial airlines. That's just astounding to see that many planes goes over this area and then leave that area basically up there kind of blank as far as air traffic. And like I told him earlier before the meeting started, get some of my relatives out of the air so they don't kill themselves or somebody else. So, but
And we work very closely with General Aviation. I mean, this is something that we do. There's procedures in place that allow this airspace to be notamed out, notification processes for those who live in that area who fly General Aviation. We are working very closely with the FAA to make sure that those General Aviation concerns are being addressed. So.
Any other questions from the commission?
Thank you.
I know that the Air Force would like us to commit to a letter of support for this MOA, so I would like us to consider that and today, if at all possible. And
So do you want a motion? Can we?
I think that'd be the thing to do, is make a motion. I was kind of waiting for somebody else to say something, so go right ahead if you want to.
So you make it to you or to Lindell? I'm just trying to get my procedure.
I think to Lindell.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we want him to sign it.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that Pennington County submit a letter of support for this new airspace project for the Air Force.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, being an old Army man myself, I think there's nothing more important to this country and its defense than the Air Force. Hopefully it saves some lives, at least our lives in this country. And the more training they have, the better off we're going to be.
Any other remarks?
I tell you, I don't think we can say enough about our veterans, about our current service members, about the active duty people, the National Guard, all of them, what they do for this country and to protect us from all of those, as the Constitution says, enemies foreign and domestic. And I really appreciate your service. And Lieutenant Allison, thank you. And thanks for coming today. And I would be my recommendation that Holly work with the proper folks at the base to get the right wording in that letter, and the chair signed it as soon as it's ready.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Colonel.
Okay, we have a motion and a
Yes, we
second
do.
on the floor.
And
Right ahead.
if there's any further discussion, if not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks again. Appreciate you coming.
Okay, next item is a lead and release request, and Holly's getting the phone ready.
Sir, are you there?
Yeah,
Okay, you're in the meeting with the Board of Commissioners.
good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Would you wish to explain to the commission what you're seeking?
Okay, yeah, I can do it briefly. I sent you most all the information that I have, but it's just that, like, back in early January, I got a letter from Credit Collections Bureau, and it said that I owed Pennington County $120, and I couldn't remember that, and then not having any warning letter sent to me before it was sent to a collections bureau, against my credit rating. And so I called them up, and they said they sent some more paperwork to me about a lien that was filed back in 1997, which would have been 17 years ago. And so I called up to the courthouse, to the clerk of court, so I thought that might be where it was at, because I had paid a fine before, and I thought maybe I didn't pay all my fine. And they didn't know anything, so I drove up. I lived 55 miles away, so I drove up to the courthouse on the day off that I had and talked to the clerk of courts, and they didn't really have anything. All they could show me on their computer was what I had gotten from the collections bureau. They said, go to the auditor's office and see what they have. So I went there, and I didn't find out anything there. I just want something specific about what I owe, and and do I have is there a document with my signature on it? And they didn't have anything, and so the lady at the auditor's office gave me the application to rescind the lien, and that's why I sent it in. And that's about all I know. It was just something out of the blue that I did not remember.
Do any of the commission members have any questions?
So this is Commissioner Troutman. Do you not remember having, this was for paying utilities. The county apparently paid utilities for you in November of 1997.
I remember that I had signed up through the state, through LEOP, and got a new furnace. But I don't remember anything going through Pennington County.
Well, we would not have done anything as far as the furnace. This would have been to pay directly either MDU or Black Hills Electric, something like that. And you don't remember that at all?
No.
Because that
And
is
I did not get a bill from Pennington County ever either until this credit collections letter come 17 years later. And that's why I think it should just be let go of or whatever, and unless you can send me a document with my signature on it that says that I agreed to pay this money.
Yes.
I think Jay has something to say maybe about this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. What I know about this case is pretty much what has been discussed thus far on this item. And at this point, I do not have any other independent documentation at Pennington County that would show a signature or an application for the utilities payment. The only thing that's out there is the document you have in front of you, which shows that $120 for utilities in November of '97 was paid. So I guess from my perspective, I have no independent proof of that payment on behalf of the gentleman you're speaking to.
Okay.
So,
This is Commissioner Peterson, and the question is to Jay. But on the back of the form that says Pennington County, liens filed at the Register of Deeds office, and you go down the list, and it's, I'm interpreting that there were payments made in 2008, because there's a minus 43 and there's a minus 37.
Yeah, and that was I was paying a fine. That's why, I had a public defender and I was fined. And those were payments that I made towards my fine, monthly payments.
So my question is, if you made payments in 2008, you were aware of that debt, and the fact that some process reached back and found the $120.89 suggests that your debt and your payment of that part, at least that much of the debt, the public defender part, was not a 17-year-old process in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I pay my bills, that's, but this is the first time I heard about this in 17 years or whatever. Just, I couldn't remember it.
Any comments, Jay, or?
Other than I've looked at what you just read from, and it was my take from reading that the payments that were made towards those more recent agreements involving, was it public defender? So those payments weren't made towards the utility debt. So I don't know what else to tell you other than I don't have any other supporting documentation for the utility debt. I was certainly hoping that the gentleman would recall having applied for and received the benefit of the county for some utility payment, but Commissioner Troutman asked the right question there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I can understand if you were having heating problems and so on and needed a new furnace and this, it would make sense that you would have a possible need for some help with utilities. I recognize it's 17 years ago. Something has triggered it, that we've had it on the books for a while. But it does make sense to me if you were having problems with heating in your home that.
Yeah, my
this could have happened.
furnace had given out, and I lived in a trailer. I was a single father raising 2 kids,
Yeah, I've been there.
and I was unemployed at the time, and that is why I went through the state, through LEAP.
Any other questions by the commission?
No, I don't.
Okay. We'll close this to commission action then. Do we have any kind of a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we do honor this and that we do not, I'm making this wrong, I'm sorry, that we do not go ahead and waive this lien. I believe it's a legitimate lien, and, he can certainly make payments.
So your motion is to deny the request.
Yes, I'm sorry I got that so messed up.
Is there a second?
I'm gonna second it just so we can talk about it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the request. Now we're open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is a tough one because it's not really enough money to have our state's attorney spend enough time in taking it to court on. On the other hand, there's, we have to trust our auditor's office, our register of deeds office in doing these kind of things. And if we start saying, we're not sure, we don't think you did it right, I think that's a bad precedent. So I think I'm gonna have to vote for it.
Any other comments? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Davis? Oh, excuse me, Musgrave.
That was all right. Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Troutman?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes. Motion to deny carried. Okay, next item is items from the sheriff's office, item 16.
Morning. Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff. I sent you a memo ahead of time requesting several items be placed into reserve, and I'll just run through them real quick and then stand for any questions you may have. there's three separate requests. The first one's a bus reserve, which had previously created to purchase our new transport bus, and that'll be delivered in July. It's close to $500,000. Originally, we thought we could absorb that $49,000 out of our existing 2014 budget, but in working with Mike and Mike on our renovations, we'll have to do the public safety building after everybody else moves out. We're gonna have to absorb those costs in 14 and into 15, and it would just put a pinch on our budget to try and do both. So we'd request that on that one, that we'd move another $49,000 into the existing bus reserve. The second one is city county alcohol and drug electronic records. There was a federal mandate, whatever that's worth, that they be in place by 2014 for electronic records. The state of South Dakota is also pushing for people in this provider area moving to electronic records. And I think the most important part of this is our community partners are moving to this same vendor with this same system. Behavior Management Systems has already gone to this particular software. Other community partners are looking at it. And the total cost of the system will be about $146,000. So this is kind of a down payment on it, if you will. And we look to move towards later in 14, maybe in 15. We're also talking to Vukorovich and some other people about grants to help us and some other community partners fund this, and because there's interest in the community to get everybody on one system, so as people in our collaborative, can talk to each other when it comes to electronic records. So that would be the second one. The third one, and the most significant one, and Mike and Mike are here because they can comment on this as well, because we've been working directly with them. But we have some significant jail improvements that are needed. And the first one is our security control system. What that is, that's the control room. It's really the brains for the jail. Control room operator sits in there, and they run all the doors and the cameras. So that's everything that happens in the jail happens through that control room. And the system we have now is, old and it's inefficient, and we're looking at a new system. In fact, we'll be going out with a request for a proposal here soon to replace the security control system. And the costs that we've ballparked have ranged from $700,000 to $1.2 million, and that's for software, and about $250,000 of that's replacing all the intercoms in the cells and with it throughout the jail. So some of that's hardware as well. The kitchen in the jail, it's the original kitchen. It was built in 1990, and obviously they've added on to the jail, and the main jail feeds all of our satellite facilities. So again, to put a little perspective on that, we serve a little over 700,000 meals a year through that kitchen, so it's pretty heavy use. We worked with our food vendor, and they come in and did a design and a layout for us and gave us a ballpark cost of about $500,000 to do what we need to do in the kitchen area. Last year we housed in Pennington County, between all of our facilities, about 650 people, and that's where the 700-some-thousand meals come from. To put that in perspective, I looked at Rhapsody Regional Hospital's 2012 report. If you look at their number of beds, including their long-term care, they have 465 beds. So last year we housed a couple hundred more than even the hospital housed. So it gives you an idea of the scope of the people we're feeding. And then that leads me to the laundry area. Same thing with the laundry. We've just outgrown the existing area. So the laundry is literally running 24/7. And we need that laundry space to expand the kitchen. Again, working with Mike and Mike on some other ideas where to move the laundry within the jail so we can relocate that and then expand the kitchen without shutting down the kitchen, because if we shut down the kitchen for even a few days, it's a significant impact on our operation. So, the money requested in this, the $649,000, is probably half of what we're going to need, and we need to figure out going forward if we can amortize some of those costs over 2 or 3 years, or if we have to come back and ask for money out of accumulated building, or where we go. But this is again kind of a down payment on that. And Mike, I don't know if you have any insight you want to offer, but Mike's been instrumental in working with us on going through the jail and figuring out what our needs are. So,
Morning. The numbers, I agree with everything he said. The numbers are still a little preliminary as far as hard numbers. They're not. They're kind of estimates, but without a budget, we haven't worked on it as much as possible. If we get a budget put together, then we can start moving forward. But
and if there's interest in moving forward in the reserves, I guess I would defer to the auditor as to what those motions would look like, or I'd certainly stand for any questions you have.
Any questions by the commission?
Well, Mr. Chair, just as a comment, certainly when we did the master plan several years ago, we knew that this was something that was coming up. Not that, this is extra money that we did not intend or believe would come in. We would have to use funding currently either in building reserves or from the bond money if we went forward with this and did not have this extra unexpected funding. So the money that we do have existing will go further to finish up some of the other projects that we knew we were going to have to do. And certainly this unexpected funding would be helpful in all of that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Well, I agree, it's unexpected funding. I have a different outlook on whether it's excess money or not. We've already used the money, correct? There isn't excess money laying in Julie's office down there. It's been used for reserves. It's been used for this year's budget. It's not excess money. I guess, I don't know, I can't speak for Commissioner Holloway, but what I've heard him say in the past is, let's not do this. It should be a budget item, and let's budget it. If it needs to be in a budget for next year, let's do that. I don't know. It's always aggravated me to say, well, there's this unexpected revenue, so it is unexpected, and it's a great thing, except what's already been spent. So if we want to reduce the reserves by $750,000, I guess, that's up to us.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I also have a little problem with this, well, it's a big problem with it, but this is the first really that I've heard about all of this, and I didn't know, apparently before we came on the commission 3 years ago, that this was discussed, but I hadn't heard anything about it, that this all needed to be done. But I agree, I think, Sheriff, it should be a budget item. This is going to be a terrific hit on our county reserves. And I can't, in good conscience, make a vote today to spend $1.8 to $2 million that I don't know that we have or we don't have. So I'm going to have to look into it before I can really vote for it. Maybe there's a $2 million deal laying back there to build a building for Health and Human Services, and that money, I know where that is. Maybe this is something we need a whole lot worse than the Health and Human Services building. So I don't know. I got to think about it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
It's not a $2 million hit today. What we would do is we would pay for it as we go. So whatever money we have, we'll pay for as we go over the next 2 years, 3 years, however that works out. But, bottom line is, it's become a safety issue in the jail with the security control system. When it comes to inmate safety and staff safety, the current security control system we have doesn't function the way it should. So when somebody's calling for assistance, the system doesn't function as well as it should. We've had blackouts with it. We've had the system go down, and it's got to the point where it's unreliable. And this isn't extra bells and whistles. This is the core of what we do. And I do agree with Commissioner Boskrud. I don't think it's just excess money. It does come largely from over-collected revenues, and I know the auditor can speak to how that plays into reserves or not reserves. And as far as not having heard about it, I've discussed this many, many times with the building committee, and it's been in the minutes for the building committee, and we've talked about this for probably the last year and a half at least, in terms of some of the needs over at the jail. So I don't think it's new information. Maybe it hasn't filtered down to all the commission members, but we've discussed it at length many times. So.
In retrospect, if you would look to the budget document that I sent you, and Holly has so kindly and expertly brought it up for me, if you look at the estimates versus actual for year-end reserves, the portion above is what we estimated when we were setting our 2014 budget as to what we can use, what money we would have available to use for support of our 2014 budget. This is for general fund. We estimated that we'd have 2.2 million unspent budget. We'd have $0 of over-collected revenue. And the reason we do that is the board usually supplements the budget during the year that we get the over-collected revenue for a specific project, which is normally why we get it. When Sheriff Tome mentioned or says that he over-collected his revenues by a certain dollar amount, he did do that in his specific line items. If you go down to the bottom portion, we estimated gain was $2 million, which we used that gain for 2014 budget. We used over $6 million to support our 2014 budget. That's the process. What we gain in an excess from one year, we use to budget for the next year, what we always do. So that $2 million of that was already used. If you go down to the unspent actual general fund budget was a little over $3 million. So you're going to have some gain there according to the estimate that we used above. Actually, we only collected 0.8% of over-collected revenues that you didn't supplement back into the budget. That is a net of the general fund. So that shows you that there were other areas in the general fund because he over-collected to over $750,000. There were budget sources or revenue budgeted sources that did not collect enough money. But thankfully, we've learned that we don't estimate anything for over-collected revenues anymore. We just don't, our balances just are never that high. We did net 156. We actually, thankfully, to our wonderful Pennington County Treasurer Janet, we estimate that we're going to collect 95% of the taxes. That's where that 5% extra in budget comes in, other assumptions. And then this assumption, where we estimated we would not collect $169,000, we actually collected at a 99.83, so we reduced that reduction to 58. So we had a gain of 3.1. So this $888,000 is the only unencumbered money or unused money that's available out there for the 2015 budget cycle left over from 2013 that we haven't used.
How does that compare to a normal year or a usual year?
We've usually had higher than that in over-collected revenues. The budget varies. The estimate is usually right around an average of that 6%. We make assumptions middle of the year for 6 months later, they are conservative. But we did have some uncollected revenues. Some of that was the sequestered dollars from some of the federal dollars that we were getting, not large, but we sent year-end revenue reports, and you should look at those to see, and we will avidly look at those for what we undercollected. Of course, sometimes when you undercollect a revenue, it relates directly back to how much unspent budget you have. If it's a matching fund, if they don't bring the money in, they don't get to spend that part of their budget. So as that number of undercollected revenue expands, so should your unspent budget. If you go up, yep, the yellow one. That maximum cash available for 2015 budget cycle, keeping the goal of 20%, which means this is how much cash reserves you can apply against the 2015 budget, is $2.6 million. We used $6 million in 2014's budget. Now, that figure does have, if you scroll back up to the top, the assumption that you did these reserves this morning. You've already done the mountain pine beetle supplement, and I took these reserves out just so I could give you the least amount available when you're talking reserves and how much we did use and not.
So Julie, if we would go ahead and put this, the requested amounts in reserve today, but find that we would need it to balance or to make our budget for next year healthy, we as commissioners always have the right to pull that back out.
Any assignments you do in the general fund can be reassigned per fund to each fund. The ones that you have in accumulated building have to stay for expenses in accumulated building.
So in order for us to keep that flexibility, we would not want to put these funds into accumulated building.
No,
Okay.
that would tie them down to some type of building.
Okay.
If you're assured that you want to use the requested building expense, how much is that one?
649.
Yeah, the six. The 649,000, if you wanted to lock that down for some building expense at this point, I would suggest that you supplement the general fund budget with an operating transfer to move it over to accumulated building and assign it there, which you can change your mind as to what type of building expense you want to spend it on, but you can never move it back. Leaving it in general gives you a lot more leeway. If you want to really tie the money up so it has to be used for building, we would suggest that you move it to accumulated building. But through the budget cycle, if you wanted to assign them, if you go to the top of the page, those are all your assignments. You can reassign any of those within the fund to anything else. That South Dakota Municipal League Pool Reserve, we have argued, we have to show that as a reserve. We cannot spend that money. It's because we are insured with the municipal league. That's how much money supposedly they would give us if we ever pulled out. We don't think it's ever going to be there, but for financial reasons, we have to show it as a special reserve, assigned reserve. We can't spend the money. Do we ever think we're going to get it? Nope. But it has to be on our balance sheet. And because we can't spend it for accounting purposes, in GASB 34, we have to show it up there.
Isn't that just crazy?
And we have argued and argued and argued. We make them review it every year.
That's a lot.
So if you have any pull with the Auditor General, that's the one we need to get rid of.
That's too-
They wrote us up for like 3 years before we'd finally put it on there, so we lost. But any of those others, I would say that the small amount that you have assigned for your IT equipment, with as large as their budget is, they budget for their things every year. I would suggest that it either be designated, like when we bought our new HP or we bought something, or completely get rid of it and just tell them to budget. In our $80 million budget, $13,000 just is a waste of effort for everybody to keep it on paper.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know we're talking about a lot of money, but again, I go back to what I said. It's not bells and whistles. It's food, it's laundry, and it's our security system for the jail. So it's, I would just ask for your support with it, or for it, and if you have any questions, certainly answer them.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sheriff, do they actually prepare the food in the jail kitchen that they feed to the prisoners?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, yes, it's fed, it's prepared there, and then it's transported out to the satellite facilities
To the other-
from there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are they having any particular problems with that equipment down there at this time? Or is it just something that you're looking forward to update because of the longevity that has been in there?
Yes to all the above. I mean, there's some equipment issues, the floor needs replaced, they're out of space. I mean, it's yes to all the above. It's the original kitchen that was built in 1990. If you go through the jail, it's the one place that really shows its age because of the high use through there. And,
And I think you hit the nail right on the head. We're supposed to take a tour of the jail once a year. And it's about time we do that. So maybe we ought to postpone this till the next meeting and take a look at everything that you have and get a better idea about what's happening.
We did a month or two ago.
We did at the end of last year. We did it in October, I believe, of last year.
Yeah, but this is this year. This is 14, not 13.
If you go back up to the top, please, Holly, so I can see those reserves. The assigned equipment reserve is that $500,000 reserve that was set up when Jim Kerstad was on the board to buy these one-time pieces of equipment for all the departments. It has no specific designation, and some of these purchases, the electronic records, and some of his jail improvements, you could reallocate that money to that, which would help it somewhat for purchases just reassign, just retitle that, which would help him of $125,000. On the transport bus, technically, Pennington County has made money on the transport services that the sheriff's office does for the state. And what we should have been doing all along to replace the bus is every year we should be putting that gain into the reserve to replace the bus rather than using it to support county general. And with the replacement of this one, I would make that suggestion that we can calculate that and have that money put into to that reserve to the point that it's going to cost us, so that we're not gaining from it all these years and then coming up and having to do that. And I think we can do that through the general fund and setting up reserves. I don't know how much that was this year specifically, the gain on that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but that is something that we should, since we're purchasing it in 2015, it would be my suggestion that we set that up. So at least we always have the bus funded. Because we wear it out, we make money for it. I don't know what it is every year, but.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's no question that these are things that have to be done. My problem, a little bit, and it's not necessarily a reflection on you, is all this stuff didn't just happen in the last week or two. It had to have happened last year, and now all of a sudden I've never been a fan of taking over collected revenues, but when I look up there's a whole bunch of things that I'd rather take the money from and do this, and I know Karen's here, but catastrophic health, crisis care center, assigned HHS building, that's $3-something million. And looks to me like there's a good place to get some money.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I guess I'll just throw out some options, because I'd like to be able to keep moving forward with our budget process and our building process, because Mike are working with us now and bringing engineering on board to help us refine our cost estimate. And, if we could move the first two into reserves, and if you want to take the large number and either hold off and we can come back with firmer numbers, or if you want to move it into accumulated building and we can come back later and make a request for the jail improvements out of accumulated building with, some of the caveats that Julie offered in terms of, kind of locks it up into stuff specific for the building. I'd be fine with that, because it's going to take us a little while to firm up the numbers, and we're going to do our RFP on the security control system here soon, and we can come back with some more refined numbers on those larger purchases. I just know it's going to be somewhere in that range that I gave you, though, the 1.3 to 1.8. And I know it's kind of a broad range, and like Mike said, we'll dial that down as we get closer. And some of that we can amortize over 2 or 3 years to help take the sting out of it. But at a minimum, I'd like to move forward on the first two if we could, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I understood Nancy's comments, it was, well, we could just set up these reserves and then later on see where that's going to fit into next year's budget and maybe take them back again. When are you planning on buying the bus?
Well, again, if you'll remember last year, we ordered the bus based on commission approval. They approved the bid award, and, we set aside the reserve money. So, we're committed on the bus. It'll be delivered July 1st.
Okay, how about the electronic records? It says you got to have them by the end of 2014, so I assume you're going to get started on that pretty quick.
We're starting that process. Realistically, it'll be the end of 14, probably spill over into 15. But again, it's a down payment. It's about $146,000 altogether, but it depends what we can do with some grant money or other funding sources.
How about the security control system? That's important. I mean,
We're in the process of putting together a request for a proposal. Once we get that put together, we'll put it out. Timeline-wise, I'm guessing, we would award it, put it in place if we had the funding sometime this summer.
so my guess is, not my guess, my opinion is that if we put this into reserves, it's going to be spent. It's going. There's no way where it's sometime down the road we're going to take it back because it's going to be gone. And that's rightfully so. I mean, that's why you're here. It's wanting the money to do something, needing to be done. I don't blame you for that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Kevin, you said you wanted to do the first two right away. Is that what you're saying? The bus reserve and the electronic records reserve? Is that what you're?
Yeah, what I said is if you want additional information or you want to come tour the facility and talk about some of the building needs, and again, we've talked about them at length at the building committee, but if that hasn't filtered down, then be glad to take any of the commissioners over and walk them through that, specifically the kitchen area, the laundry area, and bring that back at a separate meeting, or again, defer to the auditor if it can go into accumulated building, and we just come back later and make a request out of a accumulated building, or what that process would look like.
I would like to take a tour of the jail again. I apparently was gone last year when you did that jail tour, but I was on the tour with the guys from the base that time, just before that, I remember, but, I think I'd like to take a tour and get a feel for where we're really at. But if there's some emergency deal here that you really need, we need to talk about that today. If we're jeopardizing our employees' health and well-being, and safety, we need to know that and do something about it if that's that bad.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the security control system, we're moving forward with that request for proposal process. We won't have a firm number until we get bids back and see what they look like. So once we get that number back, we'll have a better handle on what the actual cost is. So it's not something we're going to do tomorrow. It's something we need to do because it is a security safety issue. And I think we have a little bit of time as far as where and when you place the money, but just know that it's looming out there. And if you want to eat a meal while you're at the jail, we'll certainly feed you, and you can sample it as well. And I think we have a good food vendor. Our meal costs last year was about $1.19 a meal. I think that's about as cheap as you can feed people, and it's not fancy, but it's nutritionally balanced and meets all the state and national guidelines, and it is what it is. It's jail.
Well, it's a whole lot better than being in the tent in the desert in Arizona, I can tell you that. And wearing pink shorts and no coffee and.
I'm not sure it is better.
We do have pink clothing, but as long as nobody takes
Do you
it.
have something you want, Mike? Did you have
I was
comments?
just gonna add, as far as the security system, the intercom system for the safety of not only employees but the inmates should have been changed quite a while ago. It's in dire need. Other parts of it could probably be phased, but looking at what we get for a bid or what we get for a price, then that decision might have to be made. But I agree. The intercom system is probably the biggest problem with the system over there right now.
And Mike brings up a good point. Whatever vendor we pick for our security control system, the intercom hardware needs to be replaced. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that price tag was about $250,000,
It was up towards 300.
300. Yeah.
None of this happened overnight. This security system was pretty much state of the art not that long ago with the performance contract that we did with Honeywell. We put the security system in. But as Russ can tell you, or anybody else with connected to computer technology, it's changing daily. Some of this stuff is already obsolete as far as getting parts to repair what we currently have. The kitchen itself, built in '90, the infrastructure in there is in worse shape than what the kitchen equipment is. The sewer lines being 5 feet underneath the building, and you can't dig the floor up to replace them. So we're looking at kind of rearranging the kitchen and putting in a new sewer system to accommodate not only the kitchen but the laundry. It hasn't been an overnight thing, and pipes continue to decay underneath there, and it's just a matter of time before it's going to become a big issue. Can we wait another year? Maybe. Can we wait 5? I don't think so.
I'm available Monday morning at 11 o'clock to take a tour of the jail. How about you?
I'll have to look at my schedule. I'll follow up with you separately and we'll make something work.
I don't know if the rest of them want to go or not, but
We have a stage attorney back there. Maybe he could arrange for you to spend a week there.
I'll second that motion.
and you know, remember Health and Human Services in the Metal Department is here also.
And every year at budget time, it has been discussed
Yeah.
to start a reserve for some of these issues like this. Not only the jail, but the energy plant, replacing chillers. And every year the budget just keeps getting tighter and all those keep getting put on the shelf.
But the problem is that we keep spending money for more buildings and more trucks and more cars and more this and more that. And we don't see anything, we don't talk about how many employees we're gonna have to hire to fill all these buildings. And we don't have to talk a minute about how many employees we're going to have to maintain and keep those buildings for the next 10 years and how much that's gonna cost. Cost about the same amount to maintain and staff a building that it does to build it in 10 years' time. So, so, yeah,
In following this discussion, it appears to me that all of this money is not planned to be spent in 2014, that some of it would relate to the 2015 budget.
If I could clarify, potentially, yes, that's correct. It depends on how quick they move. I think it's realistic on the jail improvements. Most of that would probably be spent in 14. The electronic records would be into 14, probably carry into 15. The bus is coming July 1st, so that would get spent this year.
And Julie, maybe you can help on this, but I was just wondering if we could divide it out in such a way that we knew what of these things should be built into the 2015 budget and which ones should be provided for in the 2014 year.
I would have to rely on the sheriff to tell which ones could be charged now in 2014 and what expense we can delay into 2015. And I agree wholeheartedly, these things should be in the budgets. They shouldn't have to come up like this. That's what happens with our reserves all the time. We don't have them for the next year is because everybody comes in and hoards all of it, not just you, puts it into reserve for such and such and such and stuff, when technically they should be being budgeted for in the year that you're going to spend them. And if it takes us 2 or 3 years to build up to that, those 2 or 3 years of accumulation should be being budgeted and put in reserve before the end of the year. Then we wouldn't ever have this type of an issue because we would have been levying some money to put those things in reserve, and you can prioritize it during the budget cycle to say, yes, the kitchen at the jail, it's got a higher priority than, frankly, it comes from salaries. And you got to start cutting someplace else. But we do it backwards here. We don't budget backwards, but we use our reserves backwards. If you know you're going to need them, they should be in the budget so we don't have to do these. And prioritized at that time, not cut because, oh, we can do it later. Or else you need to increase your accumulated building levy to have some extra money. There is no extra money to do these types of large projects. You're not building any money up anywhere.
And I think Julie's example of the bus is a good one. We know every 5 years or so we're going to have to replace it, but historically, we've waited till a year when we had over-collected revenues, if you will, within our budget, and then we come and ask to put it into reserve like we did, and it is a little backwards. We should be building that in 50,000 or 100,000 a year to try and offset some of that one-time purchase 5 years down the road. But this is the dilemma I have right now, though, with these. And
Will it create a problem for you to, if this is, a decision on this is held over till next meeting, and possibly you and Julie can work out a kind of a split type request that says this is what we need now and this is what we can budget, put in our 2015 budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can answer that today. And I mean, the bus reserve, again, that's July 1st, the bus is coming. The jail costs is money we would spend this year. And then the only one that may carry over into 15 is the electronic records, depending upon if we get some grant funding and how quick we move or don't move. With that, it'll be end of 14, probably into 15 on the electronic records.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we look at existing reserves, the assigned equipment reserve, it would seem to me that we could take that money that he needs for the bus from there
And the electronic records.
and the electronic records. So we would have that. That equipment reserve was a good idea, but it hasn't really worked quite like we had thought it would.
No, we've just been whittling down on
Yeah,
it.
and I'm just not sure it's something that really needs to remain. And it would also give us a little bit of wiggle room to begin working towards how we should be handling these projects with the
Which is a big
budgeting for the
step to
year.
take.
It is, and
But
we
should have
kind of
been
need
taken.
to have a little bit of a transitional kind of funding to help us through that. But that could do that. And so for me, do we just transfer it at this point today, or do you have to notice?
We have to notice a supplement to the budget
Well,
for
Mr.
those two amounts,
Yeah,
if you
Mr.
want to
Chair,
take
that-
it from and then we would post that today for a hearing, April 1st.
And I apologize, I'll be gone at the next meeting, so I won't be here, but Julie or Chief Deputy Mueller can certainly cover it for me, but
I don't know how the rest of the commissioners, but that would take care of some of that immediate need to handle the bus and the IT, or not IT, but software.
That's kind of what I was looking for, was
Yeah.
something like that. So, Julie, can you
What the motion would be is you would
suggest a motion?
post a hearing notice to supplement the general fund, sheriff's. Is it going out of sheriff for these both? Sheriff's budget, we'll get the line items from Kevin before April 1st. This goes into, I'll have to work on that, because a CCADP, the detox, we'd have to do an operating transfer out.
just put them into ours, we can pay it out of there. Can't you?
Huh? Oh, detoxes, okay. Didn't used to be, sorry. She post a hearing to supplement the budget on April 1st at 9:15. that when we usually do them, Holly? 915 in the amount of 49,000 to the bus, no, to the sheriff's office. 40,000 to the detox budget, and 470 from cash reserves.
So you.
Nope, from the equipment reserve, and 472,000 from the bus reserve because he needs to spend that money in July.
And that's money we previously moved last year.
And that would take 89,000 from the 125 and eradicate the transport bus reserve and put it all in current year, 2014.
So we would have that taken care of.
No, we wouldn't, because the records are 146,000. And he's only, so where's the 106 coming from? You have that somewhere?
That's why I said earlier, we're pursuing a couple grant opportunities, one through Recurvich and some other folks, and then what we're going to try and do is if we look towards the end of the year and all we have is a 40,000, we'll amortize that cost over 2 or 3 years and absorb it within our budget going forward. So,
And the jail improvements, you want 650, but really, it might be $1.3 million to $1.8 million, right?
We need to find that out.
But that's some estimates in the future, I guess.
and again, we'll pay as we go on that. We'll pay for what we have funding for, and with like the security controls, for example, there's an opportunity where they will amortize it over 2 or 3 or 4 years, and what we're paying now for our support, our support will be less. We can take some of that money and put it towards the amortized cost.
And that's some information that we would probably need to know, other than,
We'll do it in the 2015 budget cycle. I think we can discuss the rest of the funding
okay.
and how you want to raise that kind of money. Because your decision is going to affect cash reserves or taxes regardless when you spend it, unless you levy additional money for it.
And the other thing I'll be looking for is some direction though, so Mike and I can move forward with the kitchen, the laundry, security controls, because if we wait for the entire budget cycle to run and you approve the budget in September, we've lost all this year basically to get it in place. So again, like I said earlier, you can, I guess I'll defer to Julie, but you can leave it where it's at and let us come back with more information, do tours, move it to accumulated building, let us come back and make a request out of accumulated building. And
Sure.
Okay, we have a suggested motion. Karen, are you comfortable? Okay.
We'll help her with it.
And now, is there anyone who would choose to make that motion?
I would, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second it, just to set up a hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
All right,
Aye. Opposed?
Yeah, I'll go along with it for the time being. But I want to find out what we're going to do with it.
3 ayes and a time being.
She got it yes, and she didn't hear any nays.
All right. I think we have a plan of action then.
That, and then I guess we need a little bit better direction on how you want us to look for funding for the 3 jail improvements or the $649,000 request for 2014.
Is that something that needs to be addressed so that you could expand on that on the 1st of April in terms of suggested process, as opposed to trying to work it out now?
The only suggested process we would have for expending any money in 2014 is if you take it from cash reserves. Because we've taken care of the expense for the bus that's already been encumbered, and we've taken care of the electronic records for 2014 with 2015 actually in his 2015 budget process, but we haven't addressed the 1.3 or 1.8 million dollars needed for 1, 2, and 3. Is that my? Yes.
My impression was that Sheriff Tom and Mike were going to clarify that a little bit.
Okay. If we could do that on the second meeting of April, would be better for both Kevin and I. I'll be out on the 1st, and so will he.
Are you comfortable with that?
Mr.
Timeline
Chairman.
works okay for that, too. Yeah.
So you're going to, like, give us some alternatives of, well, you're saying there really isn't an alternative, it's reserves.
It's either reserves or levy.
Or to prioritize our special reserves and do some rearranging there.
Yes.
Which would encompass no new taxes.
The board has the authority to realign those reserves anytime you want.
Okay.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, I think that since I brought up the subject of Health and Human Services and the money there, and Karen jumped up and headed to the front of the room, I think she should have a minute or two to state her case, because I started it, I don't want her to go away without having something to say, so.
You know Karen, in a minute or two, is not going to do this.
Well-
You know that.
We can call halt or call the security, well, we got 2 sheriffs here, so.
Okay. So I just clarified then, Julie and I'll come back on the second meeting in April with Mike and present a more defined cost, and anybody else wants a tour in between now and then, is welcome to a tour. And
You're going to give Commissioner Davis a personal tour?
we'll hold him until he's willing to vote yes. So, thank you.
We can arrange that for all of you, actually.
Just make sure no rubber hose is full of sand.
Thank you. Just wanted to, with the catastrophic health, that came from Pennington County pulling out of the catastrophic pool with the state, which basically we did build up that reserve over about a 3-year period. I'm trying to remember, but I think we're about on our 6th or 7th year. And we have not used that funding since we've actually first established it. The only concern I would have was, of course, I was hoping that we would get the expansion which would take some stress off of the county's budget with the Medicaid expansion. But also this year too, I did turn back significant funding into the reserve. So really, I think we could maybe discuss the $375,000. I think that there's some room to discuss. It depends upon what kind of a liability, that you're willing as a board, if we do have several catastrophic risks. But we have not tapped into that funding since we've actually established it. So I do think that would be something during I don't know, budget hearings or separate discussions we could talk. The Crisis Care Center, personally, I think that there's some room that we can kind of visit there too. I have maybe some thoughts on that too. So I guess I would welcome a discussion at the right time, and so.
Okay,
Thanks, Karen.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
She was pretty close to 2 minutes.
Yes, you did.
Julie, have you gathered your energy back for the next item?
Oh, most certainly.
Item 17.
I live for this season. You have been presented a cash analysis of all the funds. We are mostly usually concerned with general fund because it is the largest funding source for most of the operations and has the least restrictions. The other funds that we levy for are general fund, accumulated building, and fair are in your county consolidated levy. And when we go to the next page, that's why you have just one figure in the middle of those 3 columns. The reason for that is, in the past, the practice has been, as guided by the board, that we budget in accumulated building and levy the exact dollars that we need for the budgets that you set, which does not include any excess, building up any excess cash. We estimate our revenues, we estimate our budgets, which include all the bond payments, the lease purchase payments, the $300,000 extra that uses for the Buildings and Grounds Department. So that is just always a break even to zero. And that's then subtracted from the consolidated levy that we have. The way we fund the fair is very similar. The budgets that they submit usually run right along the same budget guidelines that the rest of the departments in general do. And so in the past, since we developed that fund to more, basically to pull those expenses out so people can see them better, and as well as the board, but to also so that we can show that we are levying and just the amount that we need. We also estimate extra taxes for them. They get delinquent taxes. They get share of PILT money if it comes in. So they can build up a little bit of a cash reserve, but they are not building up any excess reserves for future projects. So when we talk on this second page about the county consolidated levy, general fund gets what is left after we fund accumulated building and the fair. That's just the practice that we use. That's why it's in there. So if you go back to the first page, Ms. Holly, we're going to go back to the first page. And, of course, the reserves I've got in the upper portion. Because the Road and Bridge Fund does not get any of its money from taxes. The Road and Bridge Fund has no taxing ability. The taxing ability only comes from the general fund operating transfer out and the unorganized road fund, which is a fund that we can levy. It also is under the same tax limitations as the rest of the funds. The library, as you are aware, is another taxing fund. No, they're alphabetical. Library, it's running out of money. You've been known that, and we reprojected, and I think it's still about 2016. Yes. Some of you may be gone, you may not, but that's something you're going to have to face. And the other levied fund is county fire, which is under, fire. And it has, if you go down to the bottom of your first page, they have 73.84 in unencumbered reserve money. But again, it can only be used for county fire-related expenses. So it's hard to drive his cash reserve down. I know a couple of years ago, we had you set up a special reserve just so we could show you were not overtaxing, and frankly, in a special fund, it's not worth reporting them because we can't spend it on anything else either. That's why we've taken all the special reserves out of road and bridge. Because it's very specified money and that's all he can use it on. And those special funds can have more than the 40% by law. It's only county general. So if you follow that through, those supplements, I will update this for the next meeting, taking those two out that we made today, removing the transport bus because that will increase the budget, and basically it will raise your figure on ending fund balance right there in the green and the tan, and until you make the decision on how much, if that's the way you're going to budget for those expenses in law enforcement, basically the jail. It will also change in the next yellow box the maximum cash available for 2015. Because as you take them out and above, it'll increase that. It was just the worst case scenario, if you will, for this budget presentation. And then on the 16th of April, when you have that discussion at your second meeting in April, I again will adjust this for the decisions that you made, so you are always dealing with a current analysis of all your funds. This replaces that 5-year cash analysis that we used to do one time a year, and this is a much better document. We keep it updated every time you make a motion to supplement, so you always have a current idea of where you're at. Now, if you go to the second page of the document, the funds as you see, county fund, county general, accumulated building, and fair, those are your 3 county consolidated, and I explained to you that we first fund accumulated building and the fair, and the rest goes into general. But for budget discussions, when you're talking tax dollars available, we have to talk those 3 total together. I can tell you how much we're levied in each one individually, but with the practice of taking what we need for those 2 budgets set first, it really doesn't make any difference when we look at them. I have to look at them as a total when you're talking your tax limitations. The purple square, your color is different than it prints out. Up there, it's the pink. On your existing papers, this shows you the information for every fund, and of course, your levied funds are those 4 that go across, plus your county consolidated. That gives you the last year dollar amount, the last year's levy, and what it costs for every $100,000 of value and for your county consolidated in each fund as you go along. Now, the maximum, the limitations on counties are on your tax dollars, not your levies. Just so everybody gets confused that it's a levy freeze. It is not a levy freeze. It is a levy. It is a maximum tax dollars that you can levy each year. You can say like we did last year, we want our levy frozen, and that information is on this sheet. But it's not what the tax statutes tell us. Our freeze is on tax dollars plus CPI and our percent of growth. You can store your CPI for 3 years, which that figure is below. But if you go back up to the growth one is next. This is the one we've used most of our growth in, if not all of it, forever. Because this you cannot store and you can never regain it. So once you don't levy for it, you have lost it. Growth value is that 293, and it has it for all the other funds. They're not in, they have to stand on their own with levies and everything. Growth value is 4.13%. So tax dollars available from growth is $1.5 million. Your estimated levy against values that we've estimated current is 5.248. Taxes for your $100,000 value is 524. Tax dollar change on a $100,000 value from 2013 pay 14 to next year would be an increase of 379. This is where your formulas, your percentages in growth in the county versus growth totally, how your value changes is why you can never say, we froze the levy and your personal taxes will never go up. It's a numbers game. It looks good. But this shows us because there's a levy increase in county general that the 4.13% of growth is a little bit more than the change in revalued dollars. If they were exactly the same percentage, you would see a 0 increase. But that's where that plays. We can't gain on taxes on revalued dollars, but we can on new construction. That's the difference, and that's why you'll either see an increase or a decrease. Now, just for an example, the next fund that you see is fire, and you'll see its levy is going down. So that tells you that it's a different tax base, that their tax base revalued dollars was more than the growth that they're noticing. That's why their levy goes down. If you go down to the light purple on the sheet, the blue purple there, the CPI that's been granted to us from the state of South Dakota for budget year 2015 is 1.4. You have, in practice, always taken the growth. That will only bring in $487,000 more for budget increases next year. You can see that we have been storing CPIs up, and it's been different for each fund. So we have 2.9% of stored CPI that is available for the county commissioners to use. Make the decision if you want to use it, and that would bring in an additional $1 million. You can use any or all of that. That figure will change because we have portions of 3 years available, and what we would do is use the oldest year up for CPI and then store 2015s or 2014s, depending upon if you're talking tax or budget year. So that figure will change for every one of those. You will notice that County Fire and Unorganized Road, they have 3 full years of stored CPI. Library does not, because there was 1 year, I believe it was last year, that, no, we froze levies. It was the year before that the board made a decision for the library fund because you're running out of money to use a portion of a CPI to bring that cash up. And you can consider using CPI on one taxing fund and not on the others, or different variation amounts. But what I gave you is what's available for this year. Under the tax statute, you can use any or all of this. The total would be almost $1.5 million to county consolidated. The next darker purple section on both on the screen and on the piece of paper, total taxes available if you use the 1.4 CPI dollars and growth would be the $36.8 million. The estimated levy would be 5.318, taxes 531.82. The change if you used the growth and just the current year or 1.4 CPI, which is available to you, 10.82 on each $100,000 of taxable value. We're talking taxable value. The assessment notices go out at assessed value, and then we have to bring them down to the magic formula of 85%. So when they talk what their assessed value is, that's not what they'll be taxed on. But these have all been factored down to 85%. The ratio right now is about 86, but we usually lose about 1 to 2% between the original figures and when we finalize them in last part of August, first part of September. So I thought, as tight a budget year as it is, I didn't want to have to go in and come back in your September hearing and say, oh, we had to cut another 1%. So you may have some leeway. The problem is we won't know till the latter part of August when we get utilities and we get our final value, but most importantly, the percent that we have to use to get all of our values down to the 85% for school taxing. So if you used just this current CPI and growth, taxes would increase on each $100,000 value by $10.82 for those 3 funds. If you used total taxes available, all your CPI dollars and your growth, you could levy $37.8 million. You could, which would create the levy at 5.464. Taxes would be on each $100,000 of value, 546.4, and that would be a $25.40 increase for each $100,000 value. Then the next and last information is if you wanted, which you did last year, was freeze your tax levy. You could levy $36,081, and they go on. Additional taxes on a frozen levy would be $1.2 million. So hopefully I've given you, it's in a better format, I'm thinking, than what I had to keep changing that memo to you. And again, this page will not change until the board makes I probably won't change it because we don't have anything to change it on. You can pick any amount of these. You can pick a flat dollar amount. It gives you the information on frozen tax levy. And the budget then would have to be whatever tax formula you decide on taxing or collecting taxes on. That's the amount plus any increase in revenues is what your budget can grow.
Any questions or comments? Very informative, Julie. And
Holly was so nice to print it on this big paper because mine was on 8.5 by 11. And you could almost see it.
okay, and just as a matter of information, next meeting, April 1st, Shannon Rittberger will be the star of the budget discussions. And then the goal is on the 15th to make basic decisions to equip our budgeting people to go back to their departments and start to make decisions.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked with Holly, but I would recommend that any commissioner that has specific questions or points of view that they'd like from the auditor's office to have her write a sticky note, and she and Julie can bring the information.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I will not be here for the April 1st meeting, but I can work with Holly before I leave on the 27th. And I'll be out for a couple weeks minimum. And so between her and KJ, they can pretty much do it. And I'll have a computer at home, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next
Too bad
item.
Dawn missed today.
What?
Too bad Dawn was gone today. Yeah, I don't want to have to do it again.
Next item is item 18. Jay, you're on. This is the Rail Authority discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. Probably about a year and a half ago, I think, was the first time that this item was brought in front of the Commission. I'm fortunate enough to have Mr. Ben Snow with us today from Rapid City Economic Development, who I would like, frankly, to come up and have a few words with the Commission just about where we've come in that last year and a half. Some of it is kind of going back over what was presented, but it's been a while, so I kind of wanted to have that in front of the Commission as just a backdrop for what then I would come back up to the podium and address with you some of the details of forming the Railroad Authority and the resolution that's in front of you. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to Mr. Snow to briefly address the Commission on the purpose and the background of the Rail Authority.
Thanks, Jay. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Ben.
It's a privilege to stand before you again this morning. When I first brought this topic up to this board, as well as the Rapid City Council, it was in November of 2012. Wow. So this is kind of a slow burn. There are no pending projects. I just want to make clear there is no user out there. But what we're always interested in doing in our office is creating economic development tools where they may not exist, where I see that they exist in some other places, particularly within the state. If we don't have it, then I think we're a little bit of a competitive disadvantage for certain projects that may want to use a tool like a rail authority, for example. And primarily, there's two categories of users that would benefit from having access to these state rail trust funds to get low-interest loans. And they come in the realm of general industrial users. You can pretty much look at the cast of characters that sit alongside the rail, as well as agricultural users. And particularly in Pennington County, there's communities all along the rail line that are in the county. Some of those are agricultural users. And from our standpoint and the Rapid City Economic Development Partnership viewpoint, all jobs are good jobs. We'd like to see jobs that are higher in pay scale, but it's about diversifying our economy. Agriculture's been a good one for us. Tourism has been a good one for us. We'd like to see our industrial base continue to grow so that we've got year-round revenues coming in for all of our governmental entities, as well as private sector people making money so that they'll continue to invest in the community. I think it's important to note that there are some 26 or 27 of these. I think there's 27 now with the Belfouche and Butte County one getting off the ground a couple of years ago. And so this is not a new concept. It would just be new for us. And then just to reiterate, there are no pending requests for this tool. But just to walk you through a little bit of the timeline of how we got here. From November 2012 till today, there has been a lot of progress, I think, in all of our different folks involved in this, understanding what this tool is and how it could work. Back in the first quarter of 2013, we had our first meeting between a couple of county officials as well as city officials to just kind of get an orientation from the state railroad staff people on what this tool is. And then I would say for the balance of last year, to the credit of Jay, as also Joel Landine over at Rapid City, they've really kind of dug into this and to understand it better. And like I said, it hasn't been a hot burning issue, but they've been very steady in making progress and doing most of the work relative to getting the legal documents in place for this. So thank you, Jay, for your commitment to doing that, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing him to spend the time getting up to speed on what the best practices are around the state. So here we are, first quarter of 2014. We're coming to Pennington County first. We really look at Pennington County as being the lead entity of the governmental bodies. After this meeting, if everything goes smoothly, we'll go ahead and go to Rapid City, and then Box Elder, and then we'll go to the Wall city councils respectively, and take the same proposed documents to those bodies. And then I'm hopeful that by the second quarter of this year, we can get things finalized and get this thing legally created. There's two events coming up that I think will start to generate a little bit more interest in our region. The first, for those who attended our annual meeting, is we're going to be doing the official launch of the Rushmore region. It's a new brand for economic development. That's going to happen in the latter part of April. I'll get you more specifics as those dates get pinned down. But that will be a kickoff launch of this new regional brand. So that's going to start garnering more attention to this part of the world from people who maybe don't know that much about us yet. And then secondly, we're going to be making a return trip to the oil and gas conference called the Williston Basin Petroleum Conference. It was in Canada last year, and this year it's going to be in Bismarck. It alternates between North Dakota and Canada. And our outreach efforts to the extractive energy sector, a lot of those users are going to be asking questions about what kind of rail access does our region have. So getting this tool in place before we launch both of those vessels, I think, is really important timing. And then one other note, and that is that most people are aware of a change in ownership of this line that comes out here from Canadian Pacific. And I've had 2 meetings with the Genesee and Wyoming folks who are specialists in running short lines, and I've been very impressed with everything that I've heard. I've talked to a lot of people networking here in the region who've also met with these guys, and virtually everybody who's talked to them is very encouraged by what this means for our area, because we think there's going to be a new commitment. I think if this acquisition gets approved by the Surface Transportation Board, this will be their 112th railroad line throughout the world, and the first one, of course, in this part of the world. And so we're highly encouraged by that being a partner, that they've already reached out to all of the customers along the CP line. And I think there's a good sense of optimism right now that in agriculture and industrial users saying that this is going to be a great operator for them. So with that, I'll stick around for any questions that you might have. Back over to Jay.
Any questions at this point?
I do. Go ahead. I'm trying to figure out something here first.
Oh, okay. And this may be more for you, Jay. I was just looking at the structure of the advisory board, or it's even numbered. What if there's a tie and a vote?
It should be 5.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Pennington County
2,
gets
4,
2
6, 8.
commissioners, and the other 3
Okay.
get 1 each.
All right, because I was looking at the entities and counting them, so,
Yeah, Pennington County gets 2 representatives and 2 commissioners, and then the other 3 get 1 each for a total of 5.
okay. So then we would not be appointing, like, alternates, it would just be,
We would want well, how about I just start from the
why
beginning?
don't you just,
I'm going to sit
Thanks,
down.
man.
thanks, Ben.
As Ben mentioned, we've, behind the scenes, we've spent an enormous number of hours with legal counsel for City of Rapid City, Box Elder, Wall, the mayors. Everyone is in support of forming this. And as Ben mentioned, forming the Railroad Authority obligates none of us to anything. It's just having a tool in place. There's no pending projects. There's no requests for any loans or projects to be blessed by the state and the authority. And just for a little bit of background, I'm kind of learning as I go along with this too, since we have no experience in it. I've had a lot of communication with Bruce Lindholm, who is kind of the go-to person in the State Department of Transportation where these funds are lent from to each of the authorities. And so the way it happens in practice is they call them an industry or an entity comes forward and says, I want to build a spur, I want to do something with a railroad project, but I'd like to get one of those low-interest loans. They come to the authority, and through that action, they can apply to the state. The state then loans the money to the authority. The authority then subloans, if you will, the money to that project. The project pays the money back to the authority, who in turn makes a payment back to the state to pay off the loan.
Get 3 or 4 jobs.
That's the literal process of how that money comes through. As recent as last week, the figures I was giving is that so far in the history of the existence of rail authorities in South Dakota, the Department of Transportation has made 38 separate loans to the tune of $57 million. And of that 57, over 38 loans from 27 different authorities, there's never been a default. There's never been a circumstance where an authority had to actually levy a tax, and I'll get to that in a minute, to collect the money. So, you can't never say never, but the history has been very good with these projects, because that was one of the concerns, obviously, that this commission raised, and any of the other political subdivisions that can form an authority are concerned about, is how many of these default, how many bankruptcies are there, how many times do the taxpayers have to cover the bill, if you will, to pay back these loans. After 38 loans, 57 million, it's never happened once. And that kind of brings me to one of the provisions in the agreement that you have in front of you. Is we were concerned initially if we were to put in the agreement that the authority itself has no authority to levy a tax, then would that derail, no pun intended, these requests for loans from the state? The answer is kind of technically yes, but there's a way to overcome that, and I've learned this from my communications with DOT. DOT says it's not uncommon, and I've seen that. I mean, I've got online and I've looked at other rail authority agreements, and a good number of them do not allow any taxing authority. The way the state deals with that is on a case-by-case basis. If an entity comes to the rail authority and says, we want to apply for these loans, each of the jurisdictions that make up that authority would have independent, be able to look at that loan proposal, and if they feel that it's worthwhile to pursue, then the state would require each of those jurisdictions, Pennington County, City of Wall, City of Box Elder, City of Rapid City, to pass a resolution authorizing the authority to levy a tax in the event a default occurred. That's how you take care of that issue, and I've got examples of that, and there's any number of authorities that have done that. So the nice part about having it drafted the way we have this drafted is that there's no independent authority of the authority to just levy a tax. They have to come back to the jurisdictions to get that authority, which gives the jurisdictions that additional level of scrutiny over each project. So we built that in, and we built that in for bonding, taxing, and the exercise of eminent domain.
Mr. Chair, just one question about that. Can this be referred to a vote of the people if they decide to tax?
Good question. I haven't researched that issue.
Mr. Chairman, so when you say members of the authority, it isn't the representative, it is the the political subdivisions which are members of the authority and the commissioners, oh, no, not that one. The authority shall not certify any annual tax levy without first having received the approval of the members of the authority. So in your opinion, that comes back to this board before they issue it. It's not the commission as appointed
Correct.
that can do that.
Exactly.
Because I'm not crazy about giving some board the authority to tax us $240, 100,000 value. Jeez, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you said that, so I can emphasize that the definition of member in state statute and in this agreement, we'd have 4 of them. Pennington County would be a member, City of Rapid City is a member, City of Box Elder is a member, and City of Wall is a member. So anywhere you read the word member in this document, it's talking about you. So if a project came forward and wanted money, the Department of Transportation would come back to the members, not the authority, the members, and say, you have got to give the authority the independent power for this one specific project to levy a tax in the event there's a default. If you don't do that, we're not gonna loan any money. And if we don't loan any money, it doesn't mean the project goes away. They'll just have to find a different funding source for their project.
That clears it up for me. Thank you.
So what we have here is a document that is similar in many fashions to the other 27 that have been formed. We've kind of picked and choose versions that we think are best representative of what the feel is of the 4 entities that are talking about getting involved. And so what I guess I would ask the commission here today to consider is by state statute, to form an authority, you have to have at least 2 members who come together. We have 4 that are looking at doing it. And the way those members have authority to sign an agreement and form a railroad authority is by resolution. So you'll see in your packet, there's an example resolution that I've drafted up for Pennington County, and all the other entities can use this same format. And what the state statute requires is that you pass a resolution authorizing the chairperson to execute the agreement that you're looking at. Statute also requires that each member appoint representatives, and the sole job of the representatives of an authority is to get together and elect the commissioners of the authority. It's a whole separate board. The way I've seen this done across the state, it's a little cumbersome, but chronologically, here's how it would literally work out if you're inclined to do this. Today, you could name 2 representatives and 2 alternates to those representatives from amongst yourselves. And maybe since Commissioner Holloway isn't here, maybe by default he gets to be one of them. But if you did that, then I could include those names and addresses by state statute in the resolution, and Commissioner Peterson or Chairperson Peterson could sign the resolution. The resolution then would authorize the agreement on behalf of Pennington County. You wouldn't sign that agreement yet. What would happen is then I would send this information, we'll start with the City of Rapid City. They would do exactly as we're doing here and get their approval and signed resolution naming their representative. Then it's going to go to either the City of Wall or the City of Box Elder, and maybe we'll just go east chronologically. We'll start with Box Elder and then Wall. Once all 4 entities have agreed and signed their resolution, I will get all that information from them, and that information is who did you appoint as your representatives. Then I would ask those representatives to come together and elect their board of commissioners for the authority. Then I will fill in the details of that in the agreement. I will send that agreement around to every entity to sign. Then the last step is to send the resolutions and the executed agreement to the Secretary of State, who will then send back a certificate of incorporation. And at that minute, the authority finally exists for real and can start taking action under statute. So that's the chronology of events. What I've also known, one last thing I wanted to mention, is most of the authorities that are formed and most of the jurisdictions that enter these agreements, they keep the representatives and the commission elected officials. So you'll see that mayors or city council persons are representatives. You'll see that county commissioners are representatives. And by and large, those representatives end up frankly electing themselves to be the commissioners of the board. One of the theories behind that, I think, is when it comes to the taxing issue, you want to be representative. You want to represent your constituents in a authority that has the power to tax, and who may be better to do that than the folks that were elected to do those things in the first place. So it is very common. In fact, it's almost the uniform practice across the state that you elect representatives from your bodies, and those representatives will probably end up being the commissioners that are elected as well. The purpose for an alternate is for a representative, if for some reason a new commissioner needs to be elected, that's the only time the representatives get active. And if you needed to, if a project is time sensitive, you need that board of commissioners to act as the authority, and for some reason one of those representatives aren't available, it'd be nice to have an alternate that could step in for that specific representative and carry out those duties. So that's why we put in there to have an alternate, or two alternates, actually, for Pennington County.
Just a comment, the way it's written here, Jay, it's really one alternate, one representative for Pennington County. Wouldn't you want to have more lines? It's kind of silly maybe, but that's where.
The lines that you see there, those, that's just an example. I'm gonna have to change that when.
Yeah, because it just appears like, you know, you really didn't have, but just 4 members on it, so that's.
You'll notice under
the written,
Pennington County, it's alternates plural, and it's singular for the others, so it's there. What this will change to actually have their names and their addresses. So
that's the case then.
Mr.
that's
Chair,
all I'm asking for is the resolution today and then the appointment of representatives.
we have a lot of people sitting in the wings waiting for planning and zoning and things, so I think we can get on with this. We've discussed this quite a little bit before, but now it's coming back again. I think it's a fantastic idea that we do this up front and get it started ahead of time rather than wait until somebody jumps in and says, hey, we want to do this, and then we have to hustle to get it done. So if we have it done, preempt the situation, I think that's what we need to do.
I would share with the commission that Mayor Hahn from Wall called me last night. The Wall City Council had a meeting. They did not do anything formal, but he said they were very enthusiastic, authorized me to share that with the board, and they will be meeting with Ben Snow on the 8th of April, if that's correct. Thank you for being here, Ben.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement forming the Rushmore Regional Rail Authority and to appoint 2 county commissioners, yourself and myself, as the partners in this, and also that Commissioner Troutman and Commissioner Buskroot are the alternatives. That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Your first alternative.
No, you are. I'll
I
second.
knew that'd get discussion going.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Now, I have a question. I'm your alternate, is that what you're
No,
saying?
that's not what I
You
said.
guys both.
You are it, I'm it.
And you know, as far as alternates, I guess I'd leave it up to you what you think works best. You could name an alternate specific to one of the primary representatives. So you could name, you know, you are an alternate to this person, so that the 2 alternates don't have to bump into each other, figure out who's going to go to replace the one primary representative that can't make it that night. You could
We've
do
already
that.
decided that.
Did you?
First alternative.
No, his name was first.
That's why I didn't separate that out in my motion.
So who's alternate, or which of you is an alternate to whom?
They're gonna have to.
If the motion passes.
The way the motion is, they're gonna have to get together and decide who's gonna be the alternate for that particular meeting.
Okay,
We'll have Holly as our clearinghouse as
Okay.
always. Bless her heart.
okay.
enough as it is.
Yeah, that's just it.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a remark that may influence the vote on the motion? If not, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Ben, thank you.
Yep, thanks for putting this together.
Okay, next item is item 19, items from buildings and grounds. Mike and Mike.
Good morning, Mike Cool with Buildings and Grounds. The Community Health and Human Services Joint Building project has completed schematic design, and I wanted to give you an update on where things are at right at this time. Is this the point? Let's push it. Okay. I just thought I'd point out some of the things that have changed in regard to the design since they presented something back in August, I believe it was. Currently, we've gotten rid, there used to be a drive that continued through the parking area here. That's now been taken out to help control traffic. It also helps us modify costs. Something else I would like to note is that we've added an outbuilding. That helps us.
According to planning and zoning, that's not legal.
Well, I guess I haven't been told that yet, but hopefully it is. It helps us modify costs or reduce costs by separating it from the building. If we're keeping any vehicles for snow removal or anything on site that has gas in it, becomes a problem for trying to put it inside of this building. So that adds cost. So we separated this, basically are putting a garage out there. That was a recommendation that came from us. Community Health has been very willing to listen to our suggestions, and most of our suggestions have been implemented into the design so far. Another thing I wanted to point out, I don't know if it had been shown before, they are making plans as far as how the site is set up and everything so that they can grow in the future if necessary in those locations. Something I'll point out while we're on this slide is that another item in order to control costs, what we've done is asked the amount of brick in these locations where there is a potential for an addition. We minimize that so that if there is an addition there, we're not tearing all that brick off the building, and since that is quite a bit more money per square foot. They're also focusing most of the brick or where it will be seen most, or keeping it low in order to help maintain the building in terms of it being close to the ground. Mm-hmm. So we have some areas along the backside that have a short brick section of the wall that comes up underneath the windows that helps protect the building. Would you go to the next one? The lobby is from the original design has shrunken quite a bit, reduced the square footage of that area. That's where they basically, you'll notice that the yellow areas of the building are basically shared joint spaces, as are the gray areas that are mechanical spaces. Those would be, the costs associated with those would be shared based on percentages of ownership in the building. This was an area that was of concern when we got involved about the size of it, and it has come down in size. also the canopy over the, where the drop-off is has been reduced in size as well to help modify costs. And I guess point out that there has been some pretty significant changes in how the whole building is organized in terms of mostly in this front area. They've moved their pharmacy to this side of the building when it was over here before, and their waiting area has been modified now. Something that we did ask for that did add some costs to the project overall was going to bringing all the mechanical equipment inside the building rather than doing rooftop units. Thought process there, you could think about it in terms of your car and keeping it in the garage. It lasts that much longer. It's easier to maintain. Since it appears that Buildings and Grounds will be maintaining this building, we are interested in trying to make sure it's as maintainable and cost effective as possible. Go to the next one. This is the Health and Human Services portion of the building. Mostly just refinements in those areas. The building is, that portion of the building is set up for, for 15 years of growth based on our master planning efforts. So they should be set for some time going forward. You'll see again the yellow, that's once again shared spaces. That would be, the cost of those would be shared. And then they have a dental component that's also on the second floor with us. This is new to the project. What they have requested, they incorporate some shelled space for their future growth. It's likely that a portion of that will become mechanical space for air handlers for in the building. But as I said, we're just completed schematic design. There isn't a whole lot of information yet in regard to the mechanical and electrical systems, so that'll be coming in. I think the last page is just another blow up. Something it doesn't show up. I don't have revised exterior views of the building. It's something based on our last meeting. They're looking at ways of handling the outside based on comments we gave to them in order to help modify costs or reduce costs where they could. So they're still working on those. But one thing I would point out is that I think in the original exterior views, there were a lot of clear story windows that were up above on the roof of it, and those have all been taken out of the project. Community Health has been proven in working with them that they're very willing to work with us and take the advice that we've offered. We feel it is a good partnership. As I said, we have completed schematic design now. As part of that, they revised their cost estimates. And based on those numbers and the design fees that we would be responsible for and property costs, we're looking at $2.23 million as our share of the building right now. Prior discussions about this is we've allocated right now, the board has $2 million towards this project. Community Health has always come to us stating that they felt our share would be more than that $2 million. Basically, what we have been saying is that our early projections on numbers and stuff, we were saying that we felt $2 million would be enough to cover our portion of it. We still feel that way, but we're still early in the design. And so there will be some more cost adjustments. I indicated before that the mechanical and electrical systems aren't well defined yet. I think you could see how much of the costs associated with those systems will go towards, a bigger percentage of that will go towards clinical and dental spaces than for our office space, for obvious reasons. They have a lot more plumbing needs in terms of hand sinks, the special power requirements that are associated with their exam rooms, things like that. So these numbers should be modified yet, so they'll be coming down some more yet just for those reasons. But they are also looking at new market tax credits. I'm certainly not an expert at this, but as I understand it, that they'll receive they believe their chances that they have, they believe their chances of getting that are excellent, and it's an expectation of theirs. This would likely, our share of that, since it's based on amount of money, the overall cost of the project, our portion of that would likely cover any amount that's over $2 million anyway. But since we've only allocated $2 million at this time, I guess what I should also indicate or let you know is how the schedule on this project is looking. Right now, as I indicated, we've completed schematic design. This is a fast-track project, so essentially we'll have parts of this project going out to bid in May if the schedule holds right now, and the project will break ground in June with a completion date of August probably of 2015. Some of this information in terms of refinements to the design and what these costs are going to be, we don't know exactly what those are going to be yet because of we just haven't got there yet with the design. We're going to continue to work and try and make sure that those costs stay under that $2 million amount that we hoped to stay at, but we don't know. And we won't know about these new market tax credits until April sometime, I believe. So I'm asking the commission to allocate another $300,000 to this project until we know, I guess basically the community health wants a firm commitment from Pennington County that they're going to be a part of this project going forward no matter what. Otherwise, we got to begin a redesign.
Mr. Chair. Yes. Mike, how many acres of land do they own and they're putting this on, or they have property to put this on?
It's 1 point.
I think it's. I apologize. I can't remember what it is, but.
Do you have just a educated guess, or?
It hadn't been even something I had considered for looking at for this meeting, so I apologize. I don't know what that is.
Well, here's where I was going with that, and I've always felt that it's a total waste of taxpayers' money to start building up. And that's why I've suggested over the years that we get out of this area down here and quit making this downtown area that could be businesses out of our lifetime and taxpaying property, and move out and build one-story buildings for people to get into, and not putting $300,000 elevators in them to transport people. And then, as you well know, and I think I do, that when you start constructing floors going up in the air, it costs more money to suspend them than it does to build them on a foundation. And so that's one of my problems with this project. Did I hear you right that this canopy is going to be gone now?
It's not gone, but it has been significantly reduced in size.
Well, I can tell you, my thoughts about this is that the people that are going to utilize this building don't care whether there's a drive-up port there or not. They're coming there to get the taxpayers' help in things that they need help with. And I don't think we need a big fancy building and a two-story one and all of the amenities to go with it that the state generally likes to build. And I have a real problem. And Karen, when I brought up the 2 million for this project that was locked in with the budget already, she said she'd be more than willing to talk about other monies that are being held for her department. Well, I can see where those other monies are being held for and where they're going right now. I don't think there's going to be any money left there for the sheriff's office. So I got a real problem with this.
Mr. Chair, could I just make a few comments? I know there's some concern about the fact that we would maintain the building. And Mike, I think it might be worth some time to spend on the percentage of the use of the building and how we came to the percentage for not only maintenance and but for the building itself, the total cost, because we did have and this was Don Holloway who handled this. He's handled this sort of thing for many, many different projects for the county, and I just think it's worth it to go through and help everyone understand that, okay, yes, Pennington County is going to maintain the building, but we're only going to pay for our part of cleaning or painting or whatever. We will not be paying for community health's portion, and I think it'd be worth it to.
Certainly. Well, let me go back way to the beginning of when this idea was first floated. I believe that the project was talked about in terms of this be a building that the county has a third ownership in, and based on the size of building that was being contemplated at that time. Since then, based on their design work, it has the size of their portion of it has grown somewhat, not a whole lot, but it has grown some. And what we've indicated is that these percentages need to be broken out based on square footage. So in terms of who pays for utilities and who pays for the shared common spaces, the care of them and construction of them, those are broken up by percentage, basically. That's determined by the adding the used spaces all together and then dividing it to figure out by that total number, dividing each separate space to figure out what that percentage is. So right now, the way that works out is 23% of the building is the county's percentage of that. So we would pay for the county section of the building as it was indicated in the drawing, but we also owe 23% of the site, the shared common spaces, some of the mechanical, the shared equipment spaces of the building. And those numbers that we're talking about include that in there.
It's the 23%.
What's that?
And so the property costs and so on are 23%. That's where those numbers came from.
And that's how going forward, how utilities and everything would be handled as well. They would be, we're talking about doing some things with metering, something that we're looking at doing that we're incorporating into our new project is so that we can monitor energy usage more closely. But that's something that we'd like to incorporate in this project as well. But in general, you can look at it from the standpoint of a percentage breakdown. 23% of the utility costs and less actually would be our responsibility. They would pay, if Buildings and Grounds is maintaining the facility for them, then they would be paying their portion of that.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. And that's all well and good, talking about the maintenance and the upkeep and that kind of thing, and that was something else I had written down here later. But nothing was said at all about my first statement, about everything that I mentioned. So I'd like to get back to that and find out why we're building two-story buildings with carports and annexes and things for people to drive under when no other county building has that for the taxpaying public.
Well,
so that's where I'm headed.
Okay. The reason why it's a two-story building is because the site makes the project kind of a puzzle in terms of what they want to do with it going forward in the future. If you see that these areas here and here are actually future growth parking lots. In order to be able to accommodate growth in the future for them, they need to, well, first of all, they have to have so much parking space available on the site, and that's what eats up most of the site. You're also required to have so much open space on a site. So,
That's why I asked to start with my first statement is how many acres do we have?
and I apologize, I just don't know that number off the top of my
You can
head.
go out here and look, no matter what kind of a building you build, it's open for the public and you have to put 2 elevators in it. That's at least $500,000.
I would say, probably $300,000 might be pretty close, yes.
No. The one, as I remember, the one out here, the last one you put in was 275,000, am I correct?
Yeah, but that was this.
Okay, so how can you build an elevator into this for anything much less than that? But again,
And I guess I'm not sure about the specifics. The numbers that we're talking about right now and the nice thing about this project is the contractor's involved with it. So we're getting numbers directly from them, and the numbers that have been discussed for elevator construction is about $150,000.
And I'll agree with you. You're right, Ken. When you new construction to build up, there is initial costs involved. Elevators, stair towers, different things like that. But what's not given there is as you build up and utilize elevators and stair towers, the maintenance cost for years to come is a lot less. You take this exact building right here, it runs around $4.25 a square foot to maintain, $4.25
per year,
You go to the public health building, which doesn't have an elevator, does have some stair towers, but that one runs around $7.50, $8 a square foot to maintain, because you have basically 4 floors here sharing a lot of the same utilities. You also have some savings in construction though, because you don't have long runs of ductwork or long runs of piping. There's some pros and cons both ways of going up or out. Roofs is a big one I mean, when you start replacing roofs on a flat, large building, it gets expensive, and that plays into your maintenance cost. So there is some give and take on going up or out. As far as the fanciness of this building, when we first got involved with it, we've already said that some of the frills, there was some, and they're working with us to trim them. I'm still not sold on a lot of the landscaping or the drive, the turn drive myself, but we're getting to the next stage in design to where we scrutinize a little bit more. But I think Mike and I are on the side of the board and on Karen's side as far as making it a functional building for the public at a cost we can afford. I think all Regional is asking for is that we pretend like we're going to be players. It's our intention to bring this thing in at the $2 million. But if we don't look like we're going to be players, it's going to be a stumbling block at this point right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I'm sure you always have done your best to keep the costs down, I'm sure. Except I'm not going to ever vote for something that we're partnering with a hospital that makes millions of dollars a year as a nonprofit. And all we want you to do is to pay everything above what you've already allocated. No. They're not dealing with taxpayers' money. We are, and it's easy for them to say, whatever it costs, we want you to pay. Not going to happen with this.
The partnership is actually with Community Health Care Center, not with Rapid City Regional. I do believe that what they're doing is they're going to put some funding into it to help with it. But the partnership is with the Community Health Care Center, which is funded with 100% with the federal dollars. As far as
Which is our tax money too, by the way.
which is what? And by collaborating together and have a one point of contact, we can maximize those federal dollars and any tax dollars that we use and to bring down the cost. And so that's really what we're doing. But as far as the driveway, the other thing is that it is going to be a medical facility. So the whole reason why the drive-through is for an ambulance. That the ambulance over at the Community Health Care Center is there probably once a week, if not once every 2 weeks. And so the whole idea behind that is the ambulance. And with the elevator, The one elevator is going to get the people up to the dental office, which is going to be the community health care center. The other is that we wanted so that we could get a gurney down it, so we could get the gurney down. And I know that we've probably spent a year discussing whether it would be a 1 floor or 2 floor. And I don't know exactly the number either, what it is, but I know that there was not the space to do that. There was a space to do that if they wanted to just be self-contained and have it just be them. But if we wanted to go and do a collaborative, which is really the best way to go, because hopefully we're going to bring other partners in within the community so we have a self-contained organization, they had to go up. So actually, it would have been a lot for them. They could have done it with the 1 floor, but with us, for us, there are so many benefits for us with going with community health care center, especially with the pharmacy. That is a huge benefit to us. They're going to be the 340B funding. They're going to be the pharmacy. You don't have to even be a client of theirs. You could be a client of ours, and they can use the 340B funding. That's funding that is lower than we can get anywhere. So that is going to be a huge cost savings. The dental. I mean, we literally cannot, we have one dentist in town that will agree to work with one of our clients about once every 2 months. And so having a dental there, and what ends up happening is then they go to the emergency room. So I can't even begin to tell you all the benefits that are going to be that we're going to be housed under one roof and the cost savings that's going to bring. And in regards to the catastrophic program, which you said that I offered up, when we were talking about that, I turned back actually almost $500,000 between all my 3 of my budgets
But
this year.
Karen, all of that means that you budgeted too much to start with. You didn't underspend, you just turned it back because you over budgeted. Come on now.
Well, I would disagree with you wholeheartedly
No,
on that.
maybe you would. You make the budget, I don't.
Yeah. And when I brought up the 375, that, as far as the building, that wasn't even conceived in my mind. As far as the crisis care center goes, that's something that I wanted to visit with you later about, and I do have an idea that I think would really work. It has nothing to do with the building, though, however, but that I just want to bring forward those points, and hopefully that helps a little bit, especially with the turnaround. It's really the ambulance.
Okay, any other discussion?
Just maybe a question. Do we as a commission agree that we have to do something about the space for Health and Human Services?
What square footage do we have up on North Lacrosse? Any idea?
You need to go up there.
The current space that we're in right now?
Square footage, approximate.
It's about, I think about 4,000, something like that, about 4. And we were projecting that we were needing probably 10 for a long range, and I think it came in at 7,000 right
And
now.
out here, you're gonna have 10, 12?
No.
No, they brought that down quite a bit.
8,019.
And we were projecting if we would build a new building on our site, that we would need probably the 10,000. But with kind of whittling away everything and making the joint lobby area with the VA and economic assistance, we've kind of whittled that down to about 2,000 less than what we projected. Right now, within our office, we have literally made every closet, hallway, nook, every space there is that we've actually taken. The big thing is that with the new site, especially when you're looking at the VA side, the veterans side of things. And I wish, we talked about it, we wish we would have taken a picture because it's hard to, you can say this, but if you visualize it, it would work. It's not unusual for someone to bring a veteran in with their family, and there's 5 people in the office. The offices were built back in the West 70-something. They don't accommodate wheelchairs. They're not accommodating families that come in, strollers that come in. So when we were working at this, we took that in mind, building the VSO offices a little bit larger, because there will be sometimes 5 people in there with that one veteran. We looked at, with our economic assistance offices, we could have 3 people in there with 3 kids and 3 strollers, and our wheelchairs, 2 wheelchairs. Again, the offices that we have right now just doesn't accommodate that. In our diversion area, we knew that most generally there's only like maybe 1 to 2 people that ever come in those offices, so we made those offices smaller than what we did like with the VSO office. So the office just does not accommodate the people that we serve any longer.
Mr. Chair, I've got one other question, and it was kind of left at a percentage. But 23% of what is the maintenance cost?
20,
How many million a year to do the maintenance, and is that 23% of?
well, what are you saying that the cost of Health and Human Services is now? What's the maintenance cost?
Won't be enough to have 2 or 3 people there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but overall?
I'll bet you we'll have at least 3. I bet you we'll have at least 3. Maybe.
The old building now is running right around $740 a square foot to maintain.
$740 a square foot, and that's a maintenance cost per,
We're looking at this building, for just budgetary reasons, because we don't know the kind of mechanical systems we want to use yet. There's some unknowns there, but for budgetary reasons, we're penciling it $850 a square foot right now. But that all really depends on what kind of.
so $850 a square foot for the new building per year, maintenance cost.
For budgetary reasons.
Okay, and how many square feet is this total building?
It's a little more than 40,000 square feet.
40,000.
Quick math, that's about 340,000.
Yeah. Okay, and so how many employees is that going to take of the counties to man that every day?
Actually, as far as the medical and dental areas, we probably do some kind of contract cleaning. The maintenance would probably be absorbed by existing staff, and probably 1 FTE for somebody to be at the site to take care of grounds, to do minor maintenance, to oversee that the cleaning contract is done correctly.
So how can we, Mike, Mike, you've always been good at what you do. So all I'm doing is asking questions here. How can we possibly accumulate or put that into existing staff's time per day to do the maintenance on it? Especially when we're adding this big facility over here, and right offhand, it doesn't make me.
I'm adding some FTEs here.
Yeah.
Like I say, there's still some unknowns here. If it's rooftop units, I may be looking at another individual. If it's another basic energy plant with chiller and generator and a boiler system, that can fall into our routine and our rotation of maintenance, that kind of thing. But if it's the cheapest as cheap can go, and you got rooftop units like the mall's got, then you're going to have somebody there more often.
But what I'm talking about maintenance is doing the floors and the cleaning and stuff every day, like when they come in and empty the trash cans, vacuum the floors, realign the dust things, the regular maintenance every day. how can we possibly get by with the staff we have?
I think what he indicated earlier was that because of it being the medical nature of it for the clinic and the dental area, what's being considered right now is that we do a contract to have somebody do
Like
that.
contract cleaning
So, and
would
that's-
fit on the, would be
That's where I'm headed.
3 to 5 individuals up there in the evening under the contract, but I'm also figuring that into this $850
Okay.
a square foot.
So that's where I'm headed with my next question, is because I know in a medical facility, you're gonna have a lot more professional cleaning staff than what we have to vacuum the floors here, take care of this place, because you're gonna take care of the staff and strep infections and things that are in those rooms.
And we've been very clear with them that we understand that their cleaning requirements are more significant than ours in terms of the offices. And there's a cost associated with that difference. I mean, that their costs are higher than ours are.
Correct.
Per square foot.
Much like building a medical facility costs more than building office space, taking care of it costs more than taking care of an office space.
Well, at this point, whatever the premise was that caused Pennington County to join in this effort and get to this point, must have been viewed as an advantage to all parties. And so at this stage of the game, the question is, do we keep going or do we stop? Is that what the question really is?
That's correct.
Is that really the fair question? I don't think it is that, is it?
It is because of the schedule of the project, and that's the only reason why I'm here now, rather than waiting to find out some of these other answers because of the schedule.
So if we say, no, we're not gonna give you another $300,000, we're out of it. I guess, so be it. If they're that picky, don't want our $2 million, I guess they don't want our $2 million.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask then, if we're out of it, then we need to figure out, and I believe we did talk about this, a year or so ago? What it's gonna cost us to deal with our current situation up there space-wise? Because we looked at adding on, and the cost of adding on to the existing building was considerable. I
think it was approaching $3 million.
Yeah.
Because we lost the benefits of a larger project, and
Yeah. So, I mean, we can decide to not go on this, certainly, but there is a very intended consequence in that. And,
And what happens when they come in and say, we want $4 million?
well, then we have to say no.
And the sheriff just said he wanted 2 million. So all of a sudden today, we're talking about an extra $3-4 million that we may be spending.
But we did have this as an
yes,
exist.
and I just want to be clear that they have come to us and said that their percentage, or what they expected our share of this building was going to be more than $2 million. We were saying we don't think that we should need to pay more than $2 million.
Yeah.
And we still are of that mind. We think that we're going to get there, but there are unknowns that we won't know for an amount of time yet, and they want to continue with the project.
They just want us to sign a blank check.
No.
Same thing, exactly what it is. Yeah, when's the last time we got Holly, an estimate, or not an estimate, a sheet of, here's how much money we got from the federal government and we're paying back at a reduced interest rate theoretically? No, our money that we borrowed on bonds. I'd like a bond report that says how much money we've spent and how much we got to go. Because that's where this money's got to come from, I assume.
Mr. Chair, and Ron, I think that if you look back on the sheriff's report there, that says, I think that says there wasn't any bonding left.
No, that's not true.
No, I'm talking the building bond. You know
Well,
what I'm
that-
talking about. I don't know what.
But
Can I
that's
help
what I'm
you with
talking
that
about.
a little bit, if that's okay?
I would like it. Yeah.
Okay,
You
this
can
is
help.
general, because
Okay.
I don't have exact figures, but because we do have bond money left, and that, and I don't know exactly what that was. I think it's around 6, isn't it? Something like that?
Depending on how,
Yeah. And so because we already own the area where Kevin wants to make those changes, we can use bonding. But we could not for this project, and we did verify that. What we could do then, if we don't want to go with community health, is we could take some of that 6 million, which we wanted to do something with the building out at Highway, and we knew that Kevin had some needs. Those, the whole thing changes. If we're gonna not go with the community health, then we're gonna have to decide again what our priorities were. But the advantage of going with community health was that we had some funding that we could use in our building and grounds reserve, but we cannot use that bonding monies, but we can use it somewhere else. So what happens, and I recognize that it's kind of hard sometimes because we have these conversations twice a month, and you guys don't get that opportunity, although you're always welcome to come. But, we talk about how to spend the money and how to best use it. And I believe we have done a very good job of looking at all of that funding. And if we're going to spend 3 versus 2 of bonding money, it's going to make a difference in what else we can do.
but this money then would be coming out of reserves.
accumulated building.
And that's why you guys had designated that money out of the accumulated building, was because we don't own that land.
Right.
So we
right. I
have to
remember
take
that.
that pot of money instead of what's sitting in bonds.
Yeah. So it really makes a complete difference.
Where we are.
Yeah.
Heidi, do you have?
Can I put my 2 cents worth in? You're talking another $300,000. You have no idea what the building's gonna cost. It's not designed, it's not bid. Why not move forward, and when you have the bids, you know what the number is? I mean, you're just talking an estimate. And you might come in where it might be under 2 million. And we're talking $300,000, you're gonna throw the whole project away? Doesn't make sense.
But Heine, here's what doesn't make sense to me is when they ask for 2 million up front to start,
Yeah.
and we give them 2 million, and now they're saying, are you in this project no matter what? And that is a subject that I can't vote for.
Well,
Now, if we
here's
can
what
vote to
happened.
take 2 million and continue on down the path with 2 million, I'm all for it.
Your answer is, we've committed 2 million, let's see what the number's in, let's see what the bid comes in, and then we'll
I agree.
Totally
But
agree.
what we're hearing is, no. Today you have to sign the blank check and give it to us.
I'm not gonna do it.
That's what I'm hearing.
They have asked for a commitment from the county to participate and continue to participate in this project. And otherwise, the building needs to be redesigned and start over again.
Well, if we got the design, can't Architecture Inc. tell us what it's gonna cost?
They can estimate, when we have a contractor involved, but all of these, this will be bid out in bid packages. So we'll still have, this will go through a bid process, but we have a contractor involved who's, also, helping guide us through where the constructability issues in regard to the building. But at schematic design, there isn't much definition in what a mechanical and electrical system will be, other than a few words written down on what it might be. Because you can't design, you can't even begin to design the mechanical electrical system until you have a floor plan to work from. And that's all that it really is established through a schematic design stage.
And if I can just say too, I'm kind of like Mike. I couldn't explain the whole tax, what is it, tax?
A new market tax credits.
Well, they've been
But
working
they've-
real well for the city.
But being a federal, what is it, underserved designated area, I think gives them some advantages, in serving the low income. They've worked extensively at this, and I think that they feel a very strong indication that that is going to go through, which would actually, like Mike had indicated, really bring our cost down to more of what we were talking. So this is, what we're bringing is what we hope to be the worst scenario. We are continually working. I mean, just last week, we worked at shaving, I don't know how much off, and
And you have to remember, this is an early stage of design, so these numbers are inflated because they're early estimates.
Well, that could be, and I appreciate the work you guys do. I guarantee if we tell them that we'll spend 2.3 million, we'll spend 2.3 million. That's the way this stuff goes. I hate to see a project stop though either.
And then and I said just a little bit ago something, and the statement was disagreed with. But it says right here in the sheriff's paper, after numerous discussions with the building committee, it doesn't appear there will be any funding available for county building projects through current bond process. So that means to me, there isn't any bonding available out there to do any more buildings. Now, I may be wrong with that assumption, but that's what it says to me.
I can't speak to the money available or what can be made available. All I can speak to is, what we're designing for buildings and trying to moderate the costs associated with those.
Ready for a motion? I'll make one. I make a motion to, I guess, give them the authority to go up to 230,000, which is what I have in my piece of paper, and with the language that not anymore, and not, hopefully not that much. No, not that much. Up to 230,000. Period.
Is there a second?
Additional, you mean?
Yeah, additional.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I'll second that.
don't know. I really don't.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments?
Yeah, I guess then, I don't know if this is part of the motion or not, Mr. Chair. But I think now we have to bring Karen up and say, how much are you willing to give away at all these projects that you've got money stuck away for? Because you're the one that wants this building, so I want to know how much we're gonna have left to help the sheriffs out. And we're in the chance of being legally liable for lots of lawsuits at the jail if things happen.
And I work with the sheriff's office on a daily basis. We work jointly. We're working continually to make improvements, so I'm well aware of that. The 375,000 is something that I brought up because we have never really tapped into that. So that would be, again, I have to leave that up to the board. But I have returned funding for probably the last 4 or 5 years. That isn't because we're over budgeted, that's because we budget for the worst scenario. And when I spoke to you 2 weeks ago, in executive session, and when I wrote a memo to you, this could be an interesting year for medical. I don't know where it's going to go. I really don't know. It's a toss-up. You have to say, how many cancer patients do you think that we're going to have this year? How many? We have someone in the hospital right now that just has a brain bleed. You don't know. But what I can tell you is that we always budget for the worst, because I think that is smart budgeting, because it's much better to do that and to return money. I've always been good at returning money, not going out there and trying to find frivolous things to buy at the end of the year, because that is always returned back. But that's because we have a long-term staff that's very aggressive in finding other resources. You don't find that in every other county across the state. So that's one of the reasons why we went out of the catastrophic program, because we do a very good job at what we do. And what we were doing is feeling like we were supporting other counties that didn't do a job that was, or had the staff available, I should say, to do what we have to do, what we can do, as far as getting people on other programs. So I really think so when I offered up the 375, in the wildest dreams, I didn't have anything, it had nothing to do with the community health care bill. That was something I did because I'm dedicated to the county. I feel like I'm a good manager, and I wanted to bring this forward.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one more thing to say. I hope now that I've made this motion that you will have an office in this new place I would call it a work office, so the people who come up to see you have the opportunity to perhaps give something back to the taxpayers, like cleaning the highways or something. And when I bring that up later on in the year, I would hope that you have an office for that.
Well, we tried that one time with work relief, and then we got sued.
Yeah.
So
we'll try it
decided
again.
that wasn't such a good idea anymore. We did that years and years ago, but
I think we'll try it again.
I do think, though, that we do have a good return on our lien repayments. Most of the people that we serve are elderly. They're low income. I mean, we have very strict statutes that were written with the help of Governor Janklow. It's hard to qualify for county assistance. It really is. So.
Helped with Governor Janklow, and he took it right out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Thank you.
Well, he wrote some really good statutes, so very good, strong statutes for us. Let's say it that way. So, and then the crisis care, I think that's a discussion that I would like to have with you at some different time. But I do have some thoughts on
Karen,
that.
I don't think we can talk about them at a different time, because I think they're all tied together right here, right now.
Yeah. Well.
But I don't
Kind
know.
of stick to the motion.
Yes.
Well, I am. I'm trying to find out where I'm gonna get the money to spend it.
Or the money that I returned back from this year would cover that.
You know how we feel
And
about that.
then what
now we
you
move
turned
on.
back, and then what Kevin turned back, now he wants his, you want yours. Now there's nothing left in the general fund.
And that's why I do.
All right.
Anything further? If not, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you for your time.
Item 20.
I'll make a motion to approve the abatement, since it is, according to Shannon, an error on the Director of Equalization's office, on a mistake.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do you have anything you wish to say?
Goodbye.
All in favor of the
Glad you got
motion,
to
say
see
aye.
us.
Keep
Aye.
it easy on you.
Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, stop a lot of conversation. I think we hashed this out the last meeting, and I think that Heine has done his work with the legislative audit. And I would make a motion to approve the award the recommendation to aggregate materials, Rapid City area continued from the last meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Heidi, do you have anything you want to say?
No. Goodbye. Oh, no. Not like Shannon, I got another item.
You do have the Hawthorne Ditch.
Yes, I do have another.
Before you leave, I'll spend about 5 minutes with you.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next item is a Hawthorne ditch cleanup. I was not involved in taking the photos or putting the PowerPoint presentation together. That was strictly planning and zoning, so we do have representatives from the Hawthorne ditch back here. They might want to make a few comments, so with that, I guess I gave you a packet where you could see the photos, but we wanted to put them on the screen here so that the public was aware of them, and I don't know if Harold wants to explain each one as we go through it, or we'll just, you go ahead and do it.
Okay, the one comment I would make, for for Harold and Howard's benefit is that now that you got it cleaned up, it looks like a bike path.
I think their contractor did a good job. You're on,
Look at all those trees.
oh, okay, that's by the speedway.
Okay.
Jessica, can you flip that light off?
There,
Thank
that
you.
looks better.
You had to be able to ride a bike up that.
That was it.
That's great.
I think the contractor did a good job, and Harold, I don't know, if Mr. Bees wants to address that, or one of the guys, or, I know they have, they want to keep discussions going with the county and hopefully get into some kind of long-term agreement where hopefully, I probably won't see it, but some point in the future, that ditch will be in concrete culvert, and we'll get rid of a lot of the issues we have with trash and trees and garbage and bed springs and bicycles and
Tents.
all kinds of pick loads of plastic bottles that show up in the spring when it's turned on, so go ahead there.
Harold Beach of the Hawthorne Ditch Company. I just want to thank the commission for your support on this issue. And I'm sure if you were down here today, you'd see how important it really is with all the water we have today. And I want to thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank
Glad
you.
you brought it up.
Thank you both.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I do have something I'd like to say about that, and I think we ought to put it on the agenda for the next meeting to take a look at returning that money from the drainage permits at planning and zoning back to exactly what it was designed for, rather than put it in the general fund. And then someday we'll have enough money to do this concrete ditch that, culvert and things that Heine keeps talking about. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have something further, Heine?
Yeah, just to comment, I think that'd be an excellent idea to get a drainage reserve fund reestablished so that as issues come up in future years, that you do have some funding there available to do something.
Sure,
And that's
keep it in mind as we budget, go through the budget.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion to take a 10-minute break.
We have a motion for a 10-minute break. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried 20, but I don't see Mr. Jeffries.
I forgot that. He's next.
Oh, he was out talking to Jay. I don't know what they're talking about.
Maybe, you're on, Mr. Jeffries.
I was watching Ken.
Waiting for him to go in, huh? Okay.
Well, good morning. First of all, happy to report that I have no request for monies.
Yet.
Yeah.
You don't have an emergency?
No. Just here to give you kind of an annual update on the fair. We're coming towards our annual meeting next Monday, March 24th. We'll have a 6 o'clock social and dinner, and then a 7 o'clock annual meeting, and you're more than welcome to come and get a full report at that time. But I wanted to give you an update ahead of time. We do have our, it's been accepted, but it's still listed as draft from this year's audit, which will have this year's and last year's audit numbers. It's been turned into the treasurer's office. When the official copy comes, the one that has a $3.95 cover on it, we will actually take that one back over and turn it in as well to replace that. You'll have a copy in your office as well. But we had a good year at the fair and stock show this year. Operations of the fairgrounds had a positive cash flow from operations, and I'm going to share just 2 pieces with you.
Just passing down.
first piece that you have there is actually just, I had Patty Sharp, our finance officer, just do a 5-year comparison for our audits, and then had it confirmed with Cadel Thorstensen, who does our audit. We had an unqualified audit again this year, and that always confuses me because when it seems like it's unqualified, it doesn't sound as good as it is. But unqualified is the best type of audit you can have. Found that there was no discrepancies or concerns about the operation as it was. As I mentioned, we had a $47,000 positive cash flow from operations, which means that after you did everything, the expenses and the revenues that came through, we made about $47,000. Of course, we do have a depreciation line item that goes to that, but it's not a cash reduction in numbers. It's simply an accounting tool. But we spent, and our reserves are down considerably. And you'll see, but the reason for that is that second page that I handed out to you. And that was, I hope that you find that Central States Fair is a good value in your contributions to our operation. This was the list of capital improvements that were made down at the fairgrounds this year. And some of those were reimbursed by county, and some of those were carried by the Central States Fair, the Central States Fair Foundation. But the total capital improvements was about $178,000. And of that, a little over $100,000 were monies that Central States Fair or the foundation put into the Pennington County Fairgrounds. And we, of course, recognize that monies that are put into the fairgrounds become fairgrounds county property. The only two things at the bottom there that were not installed or utilized in the operation were the purchase of a new skid steer and a new telehandler, or excuse me, bucking chutes that still will actually be retained and owned by Central States Fair, Inc. But the point to this short presentation was to let you know that we still are making good stewards of your investment in the properties. We still try to do our best to produce events and activities. I will give you one short update on the Storm Atlas. When we agreed to allow the Storm Atlas recovery efforts to take place on the fairgrounds, the city had called and asked us if they could come back in and assured us that they'd take care of any damages that were incurred while they were doing the tree removal and trimming. We did have some damage on the asphalt. And the city is now coming back in and they're going to grind off the first inch of asphalt on about, I'm going to say roughly 50, 60 feet from the fence line out. They'll grind all that asphalt off and then relay that with new asphalt. We were pleased to have a facility that allowed for that to take place in a very convenient way for the citizens as long as they got to carry in, and then worked out well for a spot. And recognizing again that it's just an example of good cooperative effort between the county and the city. The other note that I wanted to make about Storm Atlas is, as you're aware, the ranchers were severely hit because of the storm. And during the stock show this year, this annual report was from last year's stock show, but during the stock show this year, between the efforts of the Central States Fair, our vendors, and a number of businesses that worked with us and held auctions, cattle auctions, horse sale auctions, and checks contributed from Modern Woodman, Family Thrift Centers, and Eagle Sales of the Black Hills, were able to contribute collectively over $200,000 to the Ranchers Relief Fund during the time of the Black Hills Stock Show. So we, again, intend to not only be good stewards of land, but we intend to be good community neighbors as well. With that, I'll conclude my report and answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Thank you, Ron.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Did
Thanks,
good, thanks.
everybody.
Thanks for the Atlas support. That was very good.
Thank you.
See you Monday night.
See you at the annual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's 10:30 in the morning, and time for a motion.
Make a motion to go into the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into a Board of Adjustments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You're on.
Good morning, Dan Jennison, Pennington County Planning Director. Item A is a variance request, 1406, John Donahue, Fisk Land Serving as the agent, to reduce the minimum required lot size from 1 acre to .29 acres and .61 acres, 2 lots in a suburban residential district. If the county board approves the variance request to reduce the minimum lot size, we'd request that 2 conditions be attached. It's located at 9206 St. Joseph Street in the community of Silver City, involves .9 acres. It is currently zoned suburban residential district. This is actually in conjunction also with a plat that is also part of your agenda later on today. The proposed lot line reconfiguration will increase the size of the parcel of land owned by Robert Joyce, proposed lot 1, from .11 acres to .3 acres, and will decrease the lot size of the land owned by Jack Donahue, proposed lot 2, from .78 acres to approximately .61 acres. Currently proposed lot 2 is vacant, while the proposed lot 1 contains a cabin and some other accessory structures. The owners are not increasing density, but merely moving the shared interior lot line between the two lots. They recently got approval of a layout plat and a subdivision regulation variance waiving subdivision improvements that are typically required with a plat. The main issue, and really the only issue left with this variance request in the plat that you'll be hearing later on, is an outhouse. This outhouse is over the property line, as you can see on the screen right here. The outhouse, we've notified both property owners, the neighboring, which is Beverly Sears, and Mr. Donahue, who owns the property. The outhouse actually belongs to the Sears, which is the owner of this lot. And right now, they are not willing to move the outhouse. So we're just recommending that
Dan,
prior
just to clarify, we used this term outhouse during planning and zoning, and now we're using it again. It's really a storage shed now.
Yes, correct.
Let's use a storage shed and say what it is instead of talking about an outhouse.
It
Okay.
is a storage shed that previously was an outhouse.
Okay, there you go. That clarifies.
Okay. The storage shed is over the property line, and we're just asking that it be removed or they get a variance for the setbacks prior to county board approval of this variance and of the plat, which you'll be hearing later on.
So they're not gonna do it, so we can't approve the variance?
That's what we're saying, continue it until they either submit a variance request for the setbacks or they move the storage shed from the property line. It is literally a storage shed that is probably 3 feet by 3 feet, or about 4 feet by 4 feet.
So she's holding him hostage. I said that, you did.
Yes.
So how could you continue it because you have no idea how long it's gonna take to fix this?
Well, they can apply also for a variance to reduce the setback, and talking to the agent, they've indicated that that's probably what they will do, is apply for the variance, and they'll have something resolved maybe by the next county board meeting. But if they apply for a variance, it would not be heard until the second meeting in April.
So the motion would be to continue till April 15th?
That would probably be the best thing. But they could have the storage shed moved by then, too.
Well, I can sort of see there, even though we want to call it a storage shed, it is originally an outhouse, and there is going to be some cost to putting everything, I mean, they're going to have to fill in the hole and do other
I
things.
think that's already done, the sound of what we were told in planning and zoning, but.
Yes.
Oh, I
As you were there,
didn't
but
catch Yeah.
I can tell you
last
what, I can tell you what would happen to that building if it was all across my property and this was being done.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we continue this variance until the April 15th meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Consent calendar.
Actually, I have to go.
I make a motion to
Come
come
out.
out of,
Oh, excuse me. Yep.
Second. Come out of the
we've
second.
worked together too long.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn as a Board of Adjustment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
The Board of Commissioners uses the consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and a vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item B is a plan unit development review, 0607 Black Hills Resorts, Inc. This is recommended to be continued to the May 20th, 2014 meeting. Item C is a minor plat, 1404 for Granite Point LLC, Gene Quinn as the agent, and approval is recommended. Item D is a major plan unit development amendment, 1401, also for Granite Point LLC, and approval is recommended. And then item E is approval of a release of surety for RMS Load LLC.
I see that.
Does anyone wish any of the items on the consent agenda removed?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item F.
Item F is a minor plat, 1403 for John Donahue to reconfigure lot lines to create lots 1 and 2 of Silver City Addition Number 2. And Planning Commission recommended approval with 4 conditions. It is our recommendation that this also be continued to the April 15th meeting due to the outhouse, which we just previously discussed.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to continue this item until the April 15th meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items from the chair, I don't have any. Unless, Holly, do I have any?
Do I have any items
My
for
brain
the
is,
What would we do without you?
okay, just a reminder of the budgeting schedule, and we'll work real hard to stay on it. Committee reports.
The only thing I'll say is I'm really glad to have the Air Force come today and show their PowerPoint on the MOA and the target range up in Montana. I think it's a fantastic place to have that, and I think we should support it wholeheartedly. That not only takes care of our national security, but it also helps Ellsworth Air Force Base in its argument to whether it should stay there or not.
I really don't have anything. I just got back from 8 days in Phoenix, and it was about 2 days too little the way it looks.
You had to shovel snow?
I did this morning. Yeah. I didn't down there. I don't have anything.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to kind of update the commission on mountain pine beetle item. The Farm Bill allowed for states to request from the Department of Ag a special, and I just lost the term, forgive me, but a special way for the state, because they have problems with insects of some sort, an insect infestation, which of course we do, to expedite the planning and the implementation in the Forest Service lands to address the problem. And our governor did send a really good letter this last week, and he addressed the fact that we have been battling this for 10 years, and that what we are really looking at is some serious watershed quality issues, because the trees are falling in and all of those kinds of things, the flooding, the contamination of the water and so on. And based on that he's requesting that we get that waiver so the Forest Service can go in and implement plans much more quickly. It takes so long now. And so that was a good part of the Farm Bill that I'm hoping we can capitalize on in the state. I mean, it looks very favorable, but we'll see. That letter was just sent last week, but we're supposed to get quick reaction back from it. So I don't know how quick is quick, but hopefully we'll have that soon. We'll have that approval.
That's good. Items,
You skipped over number 25, sir.
Oh, legislative
that.
session. Yeah.
There wasn't anything in your packet because they're winding down. Just looking to see if the commission wants me to send any letters of thanks or what were you thinking on certain pieces of legislation that
Said
may
anything
have
about they were thinking.
passed this year. Mainly the texting bill.
Yeah.
You think the governor will sign it?
I don't know if you know.
What do you think, Ron? You're the instigator of all that.
I think he will. I think the demand, he sees the demand throughout the state. He's up for election. Yeah, he will.
do we want to start a pool? See who's right. Well, thank you for all your effort in
Thank you.
keeping us abreast of the,
I really appreciated this being on the agenda. I think that was a very good thing to do.
And people think letters don't work.
They do.
Because I was sitting at my computer watching it when it was going through on session, and I would have those legislators emailing me back the second that it was either killed or approved or whatever.
Yeah.
And they would just send me bill killed or
Yep.
denied or they absolutely work.
Yeah.
Good.
okay, items from the public. Jay?
Do you have a solution to any complaint? Okay, if that figures.
And then you can get up and talk.
Do we have anyone here for executive session?
Yes,
or-
sir, we do.
Do you-
They're ready for you in the back.
I was just wondering if Jay had a power of attorney to speak for anybody.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.